Hello and welcome to the regular Friday edition of Spurs Diehards TTID, Tottenham Till I Die. Tonight we've got a jam-packed show for you and we've got a wonderful guest in Dave Harris from the Irish Hotspur. Should put his link up, who can be found here. And I've got my fellow admin with me, Drew. First I'll say hello to Dave. How are you, Dave?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Recovering there. I was out for about 2 weeks, with the chest infection and the flu and that, but I'm back now, getting back into the swing of things. Hopefully I don't curse Tottenham. Hopefully we keep winning.
And Drew, how are you?
Not doing too bad. Drew, we were just chatting off screen there. Looking forward to a raise in temperature in sunny Kansas City, but also hoping for a raise in temperature against Ipswich, being as the last time we played them, it was a little bit cold and chilly and a little bit of a dour result. So yeah, good to be here with you gentlemen. It's lovely to have Dave back after a couple of weeks out. Glad he's feeling better, and lovely to chat some football with you fine gentlemen. Big up to everybody in the chat. If you can, remember to smash a like, settle down. If you have any questions for any of us, then please feel free to add them. And Adrian, over to you, my friend.
Right, well, I'm not one for long intros. I like to get into it. We're very fact-based here in our mature and central chill group. So we're going to start with the Europa League. For those of you that don't know yet, Europe draw, Spurs face AZ Alkmaar over 2 legs. The first leg is Thursday the 6th of March against away to AZ Alkmaar, and the second leg is Thursday the 13th of March. The first leg is the normal time of the away legs have been throughout the competition at 17:45, and the home game, which I will be going to, is at 2000. A bit of a situation for those games. European League yellow cards. Bergvall has 3, Kulusevski 2, Lenchia 2, Dragson 2, but 1. But Article 63.02 from the first match in the league phase, players and team officials are suspended for the next company match after 3 cautions. So that I think that means Bergvall misses the away game. Not that we won't cover with that, and we'll have cover, On that, this is our squad, unfortunately restricted to 23 because we haven't got 4 academy-trained players out of 8 that have been with the academy for 3 years. So this is the actual squad. Vicario, Austin Whiteman, Udogie, Parrott, Spence, Davies, Danso, VDV, Romero, Gray, Basuma, Madison, Bergvall, Saar, Bentancur, Solanke, Johnson, Son, Richarlison, Kulusevski, Odegaard, and Toll. Get your breath back on that. No Kinski, Forster, Dragerson, Werner, hooray. And for those you're worried, Mikey Moore will be on the B list. And the B list is a list that doesn't have to be announced until 24 hours before a game in the Europa League. So, and you can change it. You can have any of your under 21s on that B list, basically, right? Right. So, Dave, happy with the draw? Alkmaar?
Yeah, I'm reasonably happy. I'm happy with the side of the draw we're on in general. I think, look, start with AZ Alkmaar. I think, look, we already beat them earlier on in the season, beat them 1-0. It wasn't a great game, to be fair. I think Mikey Moore, if I remember correctly, turned it on for 45 minutes and, it was enough for us to beat them on the night. And I don't think they caused us too much trouble either. Now, I know some people look and say, look, they done well to get here. Look at some of the results and that along the way. I get it. But over 2 legs, I think Tottenham Hotspur will have too much. I think now all of our eggs are firmly in this basket. So I think, any Premier League games in around these games, we will rest players for these games. So we'll be coming into these games with a much fitter squad, more options than what we had available last time out. So I would expect to see a bit of a better golfing class. Look, they have some good players. Obviously, you look at Troy Parrott, he's having a good season. Van Bommel, he went off injured against us earlier on in the game, but he's one heck of a player. Some tricky players there, but look, over 2 legs, we should see ourselves comfortably into a quarter final, and then you get the winners of Ajax or Eintracht Frankfurt. Now, looking at Frankfurt, they've got some good players there. I think that one will be tricky. I would much rather play Ajax, to be brutally honest. But look, I think it's set up for us to at least get ourselves to a semi-final. I think we're on the right side of the draw. You look at the other side of the draw, any one of them teams could beat any one of them. I think we've avoided that. I think you look at it, I think we've got a favourable draw. So for me, hopefully we can use it to our advantage, Adrian. But yeah, I'm happy enough with the draw. Don't get me wrong, no game in Europe is easy. Let's not get carried away. You know, we've been embarrassed. We lost to NS Moore in the Conference League. You know, we got knocked out to Zagreb when we went there with a lead. Famously got knocked out there. I remember under Pochettino, we got knocked out against Genk. 2011 in the group stage, we lost to PAOK. We didn't progress. So, you know, these teams are tricky. You know, there's the history behind it with Tottenham's run. I remember growing up, you know, being delighted. We used to slap teams, and then you come up against like your Benfica or someone like that later on in the competition, and they knocked us out, you know. So I do have heartbreak because this is basically what the old UEFA Cup was. So, you know, I do have heartbreak in this, and you can't take these teams for granted. But I would say, you know, you're certainly licking your lips at it. You know, you look at for instance, the Carabao Cup run we had, Man City, Man United, and Liverpool. I think that's tougher than the teams that we have here in the Europa League, to be quite frank. So as long as we're on point, everyone, you know, doesn't slack off thinking, oh, this is going to be an easy game. It's not like the group stage now. Now is where you need to bring the serious mentality. You've got to be on it. I think we're in with a good chance to go on deep.
Dave, wasn't Omar with Eintracht Frankfurt?
Yeah.
And he's left, so
yeah.
I don't know what sort of strike force.
And they've still got some very good players in there. They have Wahi in there. There's another young promising striker in there. They've a guy called Kaufman, I believe we were looking at him at some point. There's a couple of players in there that we've been linked with in the past. So, you know, they do have a decent enough squad. And I do think that will be the trickier one of them or Ajax, you know. But look, like I said, for me, I'm happy with the draw. I think it could have been a lot more difficult.
Big up, Lisa. And round table, big up. Yeah, Drew, your take on the draw? Happy?
Yeah, I would rather tackle Alkmaar than Sociedad, to be honest, in the last 16.
Yeah.
I think we got more chance of getting past Alkmaar, though, on our day. I mean, and I say that hoping that we're going to have something resembling a fully fit squad when we go, at least, you know, further into the competition we go. But I would expect us to beat AZ over 2 legs. And then, like Dave says, I mean, other than, you know, Frankfurt and Lazio are my 2 kind of call-out ones there. I don't much fancy a trip to Greece if I can help it, but you would like to think, yeah. I mean, you know, that's not to do Ajax a disservice. I mean, obviously they are a big name in European football, but I don't think they're the Ajax of old. No. And they're certainly, you know, recently they've kind of flattered and faltered in the Eredivisie. So, yeah, that other side of the draw, you know, a trip to Turkey, a trip to Scotland, Italy with Roma, Bilbao, you know, you've sidestepped both the Spanish teams who are on their day. I mean, I think, what are they, 19 for 19 when it comes to European finals at the moment? I think, if I remember the last 19, it's ridiculous. So yeah, very, very happy. I'm just really hoping we can go into the draw with, as I say, something resembling a fit squad. And yeah, big up to Lisa Davis, Roundtable, and Nita. Lovely to see you guys.
Yeah, it is. Big up to you. Yeah, Dave, you mentioned Troy Parrott, 17 goals in all competitions, 12 league goals. He seems to have found his feet in Holland, although he did have that good season with Spurs before he started mixing with the wrong sort of people, and then he sort of got his act back together. Oh, I like the look of him, but I mean, I'm sure, you know, he'd probably end up with a bigger club eventually.
Look, I think when it comes to Troy Parrott, you know, look, he came through with such potential, you know, and many people had said he's one of the best Irish players they've ever seen at that young age, you know, but sometimes with football you get carried away. But look, where Troy Parrott comes from in Dublin, it's not the best of areas, let's say. You know, there's a lot of well-known people around there that, you know, he was pictured out at races and stuff like that with, which didn't help him. But I think, you know, there's been a bit of a mindset change with him recently, where his focus is back on football, looking to pave a career for himself. Look, I think it was the right thing for him to move on. By the time I think you're 21, 22, if you're not showing that initial promise, you're not even on the periphery of the first team or even with the first team squad, I think then you do have to sort of make that judgment call. And I think we have made the right call. Look, he's done well since he's gone out to Holland, but let's not forget Vincent Janssen banged in goals out in Holland. Look what he came to the Premier League and done, absolutely zilch. You look at a lot of the Holland players that have come from Holland, especially the forward players, into the Premier League in the last maybe 5 to 10 years. Not a lot of them actually go on to fulfill that promise they once had. The Dutch league, it's a complete different animal. If anyone with half a bit of an ability, can perform out there, I think it's a good stepping stone league. If you can perform out there on a technical basis, it's a good stepping stone league into the likes of the Bundesliga, the Premier League, Serie A, stuff like that. So for me, I think he's doing well out there, and I do think he'll get a move out of there into one of the other leagues, but it's how he kicks on from there.
Paul G, mate, respect everyone's opinions, but it's too small a sample of Parrott's career, going through the levels to a bit harsh, I think. I wish him well. I mean, and who knows what future may bring. Not every player becomes a superstar and makes it, but he still have good careers. Yeah.
I think he's a good example about if you lose your way, even for a year or two between them crucial years of, say 16 to 21, how far it can really derail your career and your potential. Do you know what I mean? I think it's a good example of that.
I mean, I remember Raphael van der Vaart saying Harry Kane was shit. I mean, he actually said that. I mean, look how many loans Harry Kane had, and he didn't really pull up no trees. And Tim Sherwood gave him his debut when our man, the Poison Dwarf, who runs the club, turned around and saying, why aren't you playing Soldado? And Sherwood, well, there you go, right? The rest is history, isn't it, right? Okay, so, yeah, I mean, my opinion, great draw for us, I think. I wasn't bothered with the draw, actually, because if you can't get past teams like these over 2 legs, you should be in a competition. I mean, yeah. I had a tenner on us before this draw, before we qualified fully, 9-2 just to win it. I think we've got every chance of winning it. Bold statement to make to say you're going to win it. You never know what happens in football, You get a Dragerson sent off in a game and before you know it, you're up against it. So always unpredictable in that respect. But I don't see we can't win it. I don't fear any team in this competition. I mean, you've named the dangerous teams and even left out Man United. But they can. And we have to hope, don't we, that with players coming back now we're down to 6 wounded instead of 14 we had at max, right? That we start building momentum, and it's form, isn't it? It's form. If you build form, I mean, I've been lucky enough to see the 84 final. When you're building this form, and some of them were now biting games, because they usually are when you get to the business end of competitions, you don't go out and thrash teams, so usually decided by 1 goal over 2 legs or something like that. So, I mean, no, I'm happy. I really believe we can win this competition. I really do.
Oh, look, I'm not going to sit here and book Bilbao, but what I would say is I am starting to save. I do think we'll end up in a semi-final, and then from there, anything can really happen. So, I think it's becoming a bit more of a possibility. I was, I only said it to the missus a couple of months ago. I said, because, we've got a couple of weddings coming up, communion, christening, all this sort of stuff. A lot of events coming up over the next couple of months. And I was like, yeah. Not gonna lie, I might have to squeeze in a 3 or 4 day trip to Bilbao, as well on top of that as well, and plus my trip to the Palace for the Crystal Palace game coming up and stuff. So, yeah, in a way, I'm not sure I can afford us to get to the final and go and win the bloody thing, Adrian. But I suppose things come when you expect, at least, innit? And it's about trying to make the most, get there, and be a part of it, innit?
I'm pleased Werner's not in the squad. Are you, Drew?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think our days of seeing Timo Werner on any sort of regular basis are pretty much done now, especially with Johnson coming back, with Sonny hopefully getting a bit of a rest, Odeberg being able to kind of rotate those front wingers. Fingers crossed, won't be required. But I think Paul G's suggesting Troy Parrott's going to be coming out of the Eredivisie more like Vincent Janssen, less like Luis Suarez. Big up, Paul G.
Big up. Good to see you, Paul.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the games, and then we're going to have a break. They've moved the Fulham game, and I'll come to that later anyway. Well, let's move on because not much more we can talk about that. We know what's going to happen, right? This has been going in the news recently. Everyone's been bringing this up, probably because we've got no midweek game and not much else to talk about, like when there's no midweek games on. And we have to have conversations like that. Dave, do you believe a Qatari deal is close?
Look, what I will say is, there's been consistent rumors since about 2020, 2021 anyway, during the pandemic, about potential people sounding out investment. And I've always said from day dot, don't get excited. It ain't going to happen overnight. You're talking billions of pounds. It's going to take a long time. With Tottenham, there comes extra revenue streams, stuff that we still owe the council for given permission to build the stadium. So a lot more complexities around taking over Tottenham Hotspur and stuff like that. So it's one of them that's always going to take time. When you look at the rumours, it's more of a phase buyout rather than an outright buyout, which again is going to take a little bit of time. I believe that's the way ENIC ended up acquiring Tottenham in the first place, through that sort of phase buyout and stuff. So, I do think there's probably legitimacy to it. What I will say is I think it's based off what Richard Key says. But if you go into the finer part of the detail in one sentence, I'm not really hearing him use much in terms of the context around it. Is he said he was speaking to someone who was obviously in the know, but he said himself he didn't believe it, but maybe that there is definitely talks in terms of it progressing that way. So, look, I'm not quite so sure whether it's done or not, but I do think look, how long have they had Tottenham? 24, 25 years? Mm-hmm. Surely there comes a point as well where they're sick and tired of the restraints of just football in general and maybe want to go off and do another venture or something like that. So it'll be interesting. Look, I think they believe they're going to keep Daniel Levy on. I think in terms of business, I think that's absolutely a shrewd move. In terms of creating extra revenue streams, the more the merrier for Tottenham Hotspur. Just hope now with the people with the real financial muscle behind it, they will go and take the risk on the football side, which I think Daniel Levy doesn't have the appetite to take at Tottenham Hotspur. So for me, look, I sort of believe it, but again, I'm going to sit down with, look, everyone knows me. I'm not a big believer of what a lot of the press print. I believe a lot of it is just to sort of keep you engaged in this big bubble and stuff like that. A lot of it is waffle. So for me, I don't know how much I really believe in it, to be fair. But I think I think when you look at how long it's going on for, I think there has to be some legitimacy to investment coming into Tottenham in some way, shape or form.
Well, we know Rothschild's bank have been left with this issue to sort prospective investors or owners out. Drew, do you believe a Qatari deal is close?
I'm kind of along the lines of Dave. I mean, you've heard whispers for a long time, and I know that Levy has friends out there. And if we're led to believe that it's the people that it's going to be, potentially the owners of PSG, then it's going to be the staggered buyout, or staggered takeover if there is. So, I just really can't really say much more than to echo what Dave said. It will, it would take time. You would hope that there would certainly be more of an appetite for success if somebody did take over, because that's my only real gripe with Levy. I mean, I think for the most part, he's done everything that a modern day football club / business needs to do in terms of generating, extra revenue. Do I wish he was had more of a risk appetite? I think there are times when he did, I think he got badly let down by the people around him. And, that can be in part down to him because he hired the wrong people. But, let's not forget that Steve Hutchins pissed a lot of money up the wall buying players that really had no right wearing the shirt. And, it's unfortunate that when the stars aligned and Daniel was willing to drop that money, those players with the money it was dropped on, and now I feel like he's kind of done that whole, I've been burned, so once smitten, twice shy, innit? So I just, that's really my only gripe with him. I just wish he'd kind of pushed the boat out a little more. But then, most recently, especially the last week or so, in Jim on Oso Spurs did a real good show the other day, and it kind of suggested that sort of drop recently in the wages is in part due to the fact that we lost the likes of Harry Kane, and Ndombele got paid off, and Lo Celso was on a pretty penny, and he's no longer on the books, and those players have been replaced with younger players that are on smaller contracts or smaller wages. So it stands to reason that on paper it would look like that at the moment, and you can only hope that if the club is really have any sort of ambition, then they would look at that and say, okay, well, now we've got plenty of room to breathe. Best case scenario, let's try and win this thing in Bilbao. And if we can, by hook or by crook, if we can do that, I'd love to see him, push the boat out on 2 or 3 really big signings that could elevate the team and really make us something resembling a contender again. Because that would to me show enough ambition with the club that I would see it going in the right direction. If we're scrimping and scraping again, I can understand if the worst happens, if we don't make it, if there's no European football next year and we have to do not a complete reset, but something resembling maybe a little bit of a pullback, then I can understand it. But I would really, really want to see a big push if all goes well, because I think in part the fans deserve it, especially the away fans that pay all that money to go and see the team. It's all right for me. It's easy for me to sit here in mid Spurs tracksuit bottoms in the middle of America and getting up early and watching it on the TV. But it would be for those long-standing fans that have been through a lot more pain. But as far as actually sort of getting back to the Qatari thing, possibly, but better the devil you know.
I think interesting, just quickly, that you mentioned the guys from PSG, because, look, they want to have, a club of a certain stature. But I think, the French league, yes, having PSG to a certain degree has brought a lot of attention and stuff like that. But reality is it's a one-horse league. There's no competition there. Everyone wants to be in the Premier League. And I did read something today that potentially they're getting a bit pissed off with the PSG, and that they are looking to maybe get out. And if you remember, not so long ago, there was actually rumours about Daniel Levy meeting with them about potential investment into Tottenham, and people were wondering how can you have the multi-club ownership and stuff like that. But also, if anyone remembers, Jordan, the brand, the Nike brand Air Jordan, don't they PSG, isn't it that brand that they have affiliated with? They were circling around Tottenham not so long ago as well, looking potentially in the future to have the Premier League club on their brand and stuff like that. And I just wonder, do the two go hand in hand, and that maybe there is a little bit of legitimacy towards that? Because I know they were looking, it was between Tottenham and Chelsea, and they still haven't really made a decision. So I wonder, could there be something around going on there? I mean, that could be an interesting link. But look, when it comes to Daniel Levy, I think, look, one thing I do want to acknowledge is, the scale and the size of the football club, and in terms of worldwide reputation, is completely different in a good way compared to where it was when I was a kid growing up supporting this football club. It's complete different. It's a complete different animal. It's a juggernaut, and it's one of the biggest clubs in world football. And I think when you look at Daniel Levy, I think, you've got to praise how he's gone about bringing around the stadium and the training complex, the slow process to get there, but also the foresight to be able to plan to get there and all that sort of stuff. I think there's got to be a lot of praise around that. But I think, when you look at him now, Tottenham is more being recognised for its commercial success, and he has no problem having the risk appetite to be the first in so many ways to do things commercially, because he knows he's getting back from it. But I feel like with the football side now, and I think it's gone too far one side, I feel like he doesn't. when you invest in a player, when you invest in a manager, when you invest in, coaches and all, it's as soon as you invest in them, it's like buying a brand new car and driving off the forecourt. The value a lot of the times dwindles, unless you buy young and you build them up and you can sell them on for large profits. A lot of the time, it's a losing investment. And I think that's where Daniel Levy has let himself down at Tottenham, especially since the new stadium and all the other new ventures around it has come in. We're shopping in Aldi and Spurs fans want us shopping in Marks and Spencer's. And I think, there's where Spurs fans want to head and where Daniel Levy's comfortable at doing his business, there's a massive disconnect right there. And I don't think Daniel Levy wants to take that step because, look, at the end of the day, we live in a world where money talks. If there's 3 clubs going for it, if you're willing to pay that extra, push that boat out, that player's going to sign on the dotted line. And I don't think Daniel Levy wants to do that. He wants to stick within his tight constraints of the wage budgets, etc. And he doesn't really want to push the ball out. When you look at the teams that do go on and win, their owners push the ball out at times. They take risks. Yeah. Daniel Levy doesn't want to do that on the footballing side. And I think that's where he's let himself down big time in terms of a lot of the moderate fans' eyes towards him, where they're starting to turn on him.
Well, it's not even just about really necessarily... I think it's not only not wanting to push that boat out, but realizing that if he does, he's going to have to continually push that boat. Do you know? Because we're so inconsistent. 100%. There's not I don't know. There's nothing that says to you, or I guess there's nothing really. And this is, again, you can blame in part himself because he's not really put the pieces on the football side in place. But we've been so inconsistent. There's nothing that really says we're going to stay there and in turn create the money necessary. And I think he feels like not only has he got to put in this big lump of cash, which because he's not cash rich, he doesn't have anyway, but he's going to have to continually feed that monster, which is where I understand why, I love it or hate it. That whole, fourth isn't a trophy thing, but it's not just Tottenham now. It's Aston Villa and the teams like that are floating around that sort of area. I think, even Brighton might be sort of getting a taste of that life, or certainly Newcastle, where, it might not be a trophy, but it lets you, let's say, it's when you find that partner that has got that really good job and you get accustomed to a certain sort of lifestyle and you hit that sort of second, you might not be champions, but that second, third, fourth spot, maybe just dropping down into fifth, it takes that extra money each time to keep propelling yourself into that spot. And I just don't know, like you say, I just don't know that he's got the appetite to continually keep doing it. Yeah. And there's no evidence to suggest that we'll self-fulfill that prophecy.
Yeah, my take on this, this originated from Richard Keys, who used to be at Sky Sports with the striker was at Villa Everton, Andy Gray. And he has a history of doing this before, about trying to predict a transfer or something so as you can come across as an in-the-know person with good context, or either that or a savant. And he's failed miserably in the past. So it's not that. The reason I didn't get particularly excited about it, and we'll come to Paul's question here in a minute, is because when you're talking about investors, first you're talking about how much would be spent on the team. Even if someone coming with 300 million, whatever it is, you're talking about the reason they want an investor. The real reason is because they don't want to have to borrow any more money at higher interest rates. If you get an investor, you've got the money, you can build the hotel, you can complete the Women's Super League training facilities. And I want to see that done, obviously, because it's good for the women's football as well. And any other medical centres and maintenance and all that, that can all be done. And then the club become an even better option for someone to buy, because everything is in place and it's 5-star world-class facilities,
Yeah.
But let's move on to Paul's question here. Dave, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. He says, would you guys prefer a complete takeover and no Levy, or a takeover with Levy there?
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll make this quick because I think I think everybody would probably rather get on to talking about Ipswich. I would say probably from the business point of view, I would like to see him kept there. But I think from a football technical director kind of point of view, I'd like somebody else to take the reins from the football side that has a pot of money and is sort of self-sustaining in that he's given the reins to be able to sell players as he needs to, which means if somebody breaks through, somebody comes in and offers stupid money for a player, and we all look at each other and go, we should probably accept that. Levy's not going to turn around and go, no, he's my pride and joy, I want to keep him. And then slowly over the course of the 5-year contract, that player loses all value and we see him go on a free. Like, I don't want that bollocks again. So if he's going to go and, keep, I don't know, get sponsorship for things, and he's going to keep money coming in from other aspects of it, fantastic. But I'd really like him to keep his hands off the football side, or become more of a risk taker.
Yeah, look, for me, it depends what the ramifications of or what the remit of Levy staying is. Is he there to be that sort of guy that's innovative on the business side, and he's just there for the likes of commercial stuff, maybe expanding other things to do off the stadium, I don't know, a roller coaster or a water slide off the north stand, whatever. If he's there for them reasons, I can understand it. If he's there to still keep financial prudence over the club, well, then technically, are we just not going to still operate the way we've been operating the last 20 odd years? So, or the last few years anyway, at least. So it's sort of like, it depends what he's staying here to do, because there's no point in getting Qatari money in, which when you've seen Qatari money so far, it's been flung around to get the best talents in world football. And then bringing them to Tottenham and then still operating under the same sort of strategies and everything else we're operating under now, because then you're not getting the benefits of it whatsoever. You may as well just keep Levy and Enoch in charge. So for me, it really depends on what he's staying here to do.
Yeah, fair play.
I actually would prefer a complete takeover. I'm not bothered if Levy stays, because if he stays, it will be on the business side. If it's a complete takeover, and whoever's rich enough to take us over have got funds, we can only spend as much as we can within the rules. But that's all I've ever wanted, us to be able to spend our maximum spend within the rules, right? And because you can't spend any more. So, and we've averaged, look, since the stadium opened, before Ange came in, I think we spent, depending on which report you want to read, 600 to 685 million on 29 players. And we all know how badly we've failed in the transfer market. We've failed much better recently in the transfer market, but there's still work to do with the squad anyway. I would want a complete takeover, and investors just going to assist the
club. To what extent have we fared better recently? Because you look at, for instance, right, Kinski, I think, is going to be a wonderful goalkeeper in the future.
Okay.
We needed someone to come in and help alleviate the situation. Bar the 2 games he got off to a good start. Arsenal cost us points. Villa cost us an FA Cup exit. Leicester cost us points. You look at some of the other younger recruitment. Yes, it's been decent. They've come in and they've played well, but it hasn't been enough to alleviate the crisis. They've still, they've still been a part of the crisis. So I think, since Johan Lange has come in, I don't think we have fared well in the transfer market whatsoever.
Well, on that, Dave, I never give people trick questions and all this. I'm going to give you the players brought in under Lange's tenure in one banner. Then I'm going to give you the loans and sales in another banner. Okay. So this is who's coming under Lange, right? Werner, no good, right? Maddison, hit or miss?
Maddison came in under Parrott.
Okay, all right. If he's under Parrott, you got that wrong, right? Okay. Odebert, Min Hyuk, right? There isn't a big enough sample on these two to judge him yet. They look promising. Solanke, to me, is a hit. Bergvall, hit. Gray, hit. Danso, not a big enough sample, but he looks good. And then we've had four academy players brought in. Has he really? Now, we'll come to the loans and sales in a minute, because there's a lot of them, right? All got to be done. He's the director of football. He has to have a say on all of these, obviously, right? Is that really a bad list?
That list there. Yeah, it's atrocious compared to where we were in the summer. Like, in the summer, we had a real opportunity. We finished 5th the season before. We had a real opportunity to sprinkle some real competitive talent into this team. Players for the here and now to really kick on, and we failed. It's a bad list. What has Werner done? People try to, justify it. Oh, look, he's good to fill in here and there. But the reality is, when he filled in, what did he do? He became frustrated.
I agree with the Werner.
Udeberg's been injured for most part of the season. You know, again, even the bright parts we've seen from him, he's still raw in front of goal. He's still not producing what we need for the here and now. Minyuk, he's out on loan right now. Solanke, he's done well. Don't get me wrong. I like Solanke. I think he's fair better than what I thought he would. But is he really making up the goals that Harry Kane, or even half the amount of goals and the impact on games that Harry Kane was having? No. Bergvall, you know, he's done well, but earlier on, it's took him time to acclimatise. But again, he's not that player in the midfield that dictates games. You look at Gray, I think he's been the most impressive out of them all. I have no complaints about that kid whatsoever. I think he's been an absolute star. Danso, I think he's done well since he's come in. Tell, I think he looks good, but again, in front of goal, he's very raw, snatches at a lot of opportunities. Have any of them really kicked us on? Let's be brutally honest. Well, have they kicked us on? No. Dragerson is another one missing off that list. He's been atrocious.
Yeah, he's off the list. Yeah, okay.
Was Dragerson, was he not Paratici as well, or was he?
No, he was in the January. Johan Lange was from the January when we signed Dragerson and Werner to now.
Gotcha. Was he not lined up by Paratici?
Yeah, Dragerson was on the list from Paratici. Paratici didn't.
And I'm not trying
to make that. Paratici brought Dragerson to Juventus as a young lad from Romania.
Right.
You know, and he's sort of always been on the radar. And when he came to Tottenham, he put him on Tottenham's radar. Yeah.
Right. And the thing is, Dave, the problem is, and this is not, Dragerson's 22 years old. You look at him and he looks like he's 26, 27, and he's fought, I don't know. He looks like he's fought a big monster with a shield and a sword at some point in his life or in a previous life. So he looks like he's been there and done it. The kid's 22 years old. But you're right. Putting Dragerson on that list doesn't necessarily make that list any better. Yeah. And I have to kind of agree. Like, if you look at what we've essentially paid Werner and what it's potentially cost us in terms of league positions, you should have gone out and tested the water with a bid for Bakayoko or something like that, because he would have given you a darn sight more than Werner has over the last season and a half. And I said that I would be, if Werner could find some sort of consistency, I wouldn't be opposed to it. The problem is the consistency he's found has been absolute toilet. I agree with you, Dave. Maddison, in fits and starts over his career, he's been fine, but he's another one that I kind of liken to Bentancur, where people say, Bentancur, he's an absolute beast, he's a monster, he's fantastic. Well, if he was really that good, he would have gone to Real Madrid after Juventus, or he would have gone to Bayern Munich, like a lot of top players like Toni Kroos has done, that sort of thing. Those sorts of players make those sorts of moves. And Maddison, he's got no European experience really of note. He only had 42 games in his legs plus a cup run and a half. He's not wasn't when he came here built to play 50, 60 games, I don't think personally. Odeberg, too small a sample size. Minhyuk looks very promising, but we genuinely just going to have to wait and see. Solanke, I think if he'd have stayed a little fitter, if he'd have come to us fit and hadn't missed those first couple of games and been even sharper, I think he'd have probably given even more. But that's not to say that I've not been impressed. I think he's put himself about. I think there's been a couple of times where we've all made the mistake of going, that looked a little bit Harry Kane-esque. He's not Harry Kane. He never will be Harry Kane. He's, He could lace Harry Kane's boots, but that's about it. I'm sorry. It's just night and day, the two of them. But he's a very, very good, very capable Premier League striker. Berryville and Gray have played more than they should have. And I think their projection, therefore, maybe has grown a little bit. Like, whereas last year, before they played all these games, I think, to use the FIFA analogy, they were 78s. And they were going to be an 80 by the end of the season. Well, now they're maybe like 82s. Coming, maybe the ones like maybe even an 83. Like, they've progressed a lot quicker than we thought. So I think that's good. And I think that's almost complicated things a little bit. Because although you need to now obviously bring in very good, very solid players in the summer, you also, in my mind, you don't want to bring in a number 6 that's so good that he's going to completely block Gray out of the equation now. I think Gray deserves to play. Do you know what I mean? But I know you're going to say we need to have somebody for come in and for Gray to look up to and to aspire to be like, you know, you need a general in
Gray
there.
on another level as well then once you have them players to work off.
No, absolutely. And Dan, you know, Danzo's look very promising. I think he wants it. I think he's hungry. I think that's one of those signings where Ange has gone, you know, he's done that little bit of magic that he does where he's kind of picked somebody that's on that right path where he's like, you know, this kid struggled a little bit. He was told he couldn't play. He was told he had a heart defect. It was, you know, there was that thing with Roma. And now he's kind of out there trying to prove a point. So I really like his attitude recently or so far. I think hopefully, fingers crossed, very, very promising. Tell looks like he's hungry for it. I think the teenage academy players, that's something that Paratici was doing anyway. That man's responsible for rehashing the entire, you know, under 21s and other 18s, as far as I'm concerned, ripping up the playbook, paying them more money because stopped them going to the likes of, you know, them lot down the road. I mean, we were losing players right from our doorstep. So, I don't know, man. I don't think it's a great list as well. I think, you know, arguably with the previous regime, this would have been a better list.
I think when you look at it, right, you could sit here in 3 to 4 years' time, look back on it and go, fuck me, what hindsight, what a transfer window. But when you put it into context of the situation where we're in now, where we dangerously were sliding to, you know, the ramifications it's had this season in terms of, yeah, they've come in and done well, but they haven't alleviated the situation, you know, at all. It's sort of like, for what we needed and where we could have kicked on this summer, it's been an absolutely complete, horrendous mismatch, poor foresight of what we needed right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And
I mean,
no
given the fact,
for it,
absolutely not.
They offloaded, you know, there's absolutely no excuse for it. They could have gone out and attracted better players in here or pushed the window. You know, you look at some of the players we were linked with, the likes of your Eze's, Netos, and I know people had their individual opinions and stuff, but complete night and day to what we actually ended up bringing in.
No, absolutely. And if we'd have, you know, like you say, we registered 23 players and it should have been 25. So we were definitely, you know, obviously two people shy. And then you add in the likes of the Bergvals and the Greys, who are really, really, obviously exceptionally young for being in the Premier League. And you think to yourself, really and truly, you should have gone out and you should have got, you know, we had left back issues, or we needed left back competition. A Ryan Ait-Nouri or something like that. 30, 40 million is not going to break the bank. It's somebody you can go out and you can definitely afford. And if you needed somebody else in the front line, honestly, I'm still barking at this cloud. I still would have gone for Acuna in the summer last year just to add bolster to the front line, because that would have been a better option than Timo Werner. You knew that Sonny was already slightly on the decline. He fills every position in the front and can cover a 10. So somebody like that, no, it didn't even need to be him, but just somebody with more in their legs, somebody that just, I don't know, would have, like Dave said, would have just deepened that squad and just made it a lot more competitive, you know, especially given that the remit was, we're going to be strong on 4 fronts.
Yeah, and just to add to that, like, you know, you look at some of our young recruitment, but you compare it up to other young recruitment. Look at Liam Delap at Ipswich Town. I mean, you're talking about a player that's impacted. Look at that. Morgan, that's at Aston Villa. Look at that recruitment. You know, you look at some of the other young recruitment that some of the other clubs are making, and you compare it to some of ours. Yes, Bergvall and Gray Gray's been exceptional. You know, Bergvall is coming on really nicely. But when you weigh it up to some of the other young recruitment, that player, you look at teams pulling players from this Man City Academy over the years and look at the impacts they're going in and having. Again, I question, you know, are we really doing the best we can in terms of some of this young recruitment as well?
And my take is, like, we didn't do enough work in the summer. You're both right there, definitely right there. I wanted Dorgu. I know he's young. I wanted him. I wanted Eze, and I wanted Dusan Vlahovic, who I still think is gettable at Juventus now that Muani's there. I think he's gettable. For the money you paid for Solanke, you could have got a Vlahovic, who's more of a make-it-happen striker. He's like instinctive as well. On the turn against England, when he just hit the bar, went over the bar and all that. I like the look of him. Still, he's only 25. His contract is running down. But out of these, I had no worries about Gray coming to this club. I'd watched him. I'd seen him boss the midfield against Chelsea. That wasn't a problem. Bergvall, I thought, you're coming from a different league. And I think we all knew that Gray would settle a lot quicker, right? And I don't think we're going to see him in midfield yet, simply because we've got so many midfielders. If Kulu goes in there as well now, now the wingers are fit, now Johnson and Odegaard are back, you want Kulu as a 10 as well. And then Maddison can play that a little bit deeper because Kulu could be more of the battering ram, can't he? He can do that job and hold the ball up better. So as much as I want to see Gray in midfield, I don't see it. This list, it's sort of average. It's not awful in my opinion, because you've got players there that we just haven't seen a big enough sample of Odegaard.
Do you know what winds me up the most, though, Adrian, about is we didn't have to do this in the summer. We had an under-21 team that come off the back of success. You look at Donnelly, you look at the likes of Lancashire, you look at the likes of Dorrington. We've a lot of players that have come through. Any other club would have brought a couple of them youngsters through into that first team the following season and kicked them on. Look at what Man United done with the class of 91 or 92, whatever you want to call it. As soon as they won the FAU Cup, which was a prestigious thing back at the time, they pulled them into the dressing room and said, right, let's look at what we've got. We're not brave enough to do that at Tottenham Hotspur. We are just not. And you look at a lot of them, they've gone out on loan. We've brought in some youth recruitment. They're in and around the squad. I'm sorry, but them youngsters on the under-21s have cut their teeth and earned more of a right to be given this game time than some of these guys are getting. And that's what infuriates me most. We could have went out there in the summer, pushed on the boat, and provided a little bit more competition by some of the under-21s that we already had coming through. But we chose to isolate them, send them out, bring these guys in. And that's what pisses me off. We didn't have to do that this summer. And that's why I'm really, really annoyed with the summer transfer window.
Yeah. And Andrew's contradicting me at times. He said, about bringing centre-backs in. I don't want to block the path of, Dorrington, Phillips, Vaskovic. I think Vaskovic is going to walk straight into the squad in the summer. Yeah. Dorrington's better on the ball than Phillips is, but they are huge talents as well. And I think the reason, if I was going to defend Ange a little bit, I'm not, and he has played a lot of youngsters. He's played a lot of youngsters, right? And thrown them in, thrown Kinski in like that, threw Johnson in away to Arsenal. What a game to throw a player in. And that North London derby, we drew 2-2 that time though. But so he has played them. And I get the point with Phillips, because if you brought him back, once the other centre-backs are fit, he's going to be sitting on the bench for the rest of the season, which is no good for his development. So I'm all right for pushing him out. Mind you, Dorrington, Donnelly.
I wonder, Adrian, is there a little bit of what happened on the team Sherwood with the Sadado situation where Davies come in and says, look, we spent money on these, you play these. Harry Kane not worth much, come through the academy, almost disrespected to a large degree. I wonder, is there an element of that going on, in terms of around this season?
Yeah. I mean, we see, this is the thing. There's never been enough transparency around this club, to really. So we're always guessing,
But every other club is brave enough to give their youngsters a chance. Man City bring through their own youngsters. Man United have done it for years. Liverpool, Arsenal, Newcastle done it when they were forced through with injuries and stuff like that. We're the only club in the Premier League that don't. Even Southampton in a relegation season, bringing through Dibbling and some other players. Burnley, when they were going, even though they were fighting relegation, doing the same. We're the only ones that don't give our youngsters an opportunity in the Premier League.
So that's 13 players that have been brought in, right? 4 kids, all right. You've still got, look, the club still has to progress in all aspects of the club at all levels of football as well. So I'm not against when some fans panic, what are we bringing in for him when we need players for the first team squad? Well, they're not being brought in to start in the first team, unless they're an exceptional youngster like Tell or whatever. These are the 22 that have gone out. Kane, Dyer, Skip, Winks, Højbjerg, Sanchez, Lo Celso, and Ndombele, Gills, Solomon, Santiago, and Simsuk Bell. Those last two in the Spanish second division have been sold. Villiers, Craig, Keeley, Donnelly, Vaskovic, Divine, Phillips, Abbott, Gunter, and Lancashire. So he has been busy, Lang. I mean, we'll talk about the youngsters in more depth. I've got another banner on them because I know me and you both watched. I watched all the under-21 games last year, even if on playback. And to be honest, I haven't watched one full game this year. Starting this group and all that, it's just taken up so much time that I haven't had the opportunity. But what do you make of the loans and sales? Not
Again,
much.
Just as bad. Look at his face.
Look, again, I know.
He hates it.
I know people are going to say, Dave, you have an agenda, but I do think this is a legitimate point I'm going to make. Kane wanted out of the football club. No saying that whatsoever. Dyer had 1 year left on his contract and we were running it down and never renewing it. A lot of the groundwork was done, by running it down under Parrott being here. Skip was always on the chopping block. Winks, was never going to be a part of Tottenham's future. Easy to go. Højbjerg wanted to leave Tottenham Hotspur. Lo Celso contract was running down. Ndombele, the contract was already run down. A lot of these players that he's got out, a lot of them had fuck all left on their contract or wanted to leave this football club. So I don't actually give him credit. Paratici had a harder job trying to navigate it when they're at the football club with 2, 3, 4 years left on the contract on massive wages. Much different scenario to navigate. But yet he still managed to have better transfer windows in terms of incomings with a lot more constraints around, how much with the budget because of all the players we had out on loan on high wages and everything else. There's a lot more complexities for Paratici to navigate than what there was for Johan Lange. The pathway was clear for Johan Lange. All the big players' contracts, all run down. They're all out of here, fresh slate, low wage budget. Go and show us what you can do. Go and be an artist, paint that canvas. And the guy just painted it blue and said, there you are. It's an absolute joke. For me, I don't give him praise whatsoever. And again, even some of the youngsters that he sent out on loan, I think they're doing well. But again, should he not be pushing off the back of their success for them to be included in the squad? I think they should be. I think
Paratici needs to take a lot of credit for restructuring the academy.
Absolutely.
Dean Rastrick went, and we had a fixed pay structure which we broke because we weren't getting these kids. And and the season before they won both cups, they struggled, the under-21s and even the under-17s and 18s. I mean, there's some phenomenal young kids at those levels. Like, we ain't going to see them for a few years, but there are, Well,
I'll tell you what, Adrian, just before we mmove on, because we are, 53 minutes in, we're supposed to be talking about Ipswich, and I think that was about 20 minutes ago.
This is my sort of jive. I love this sort of combo.
No, absolutely. Just a big shout out to everyone in the chat. We've got Lisa Davies, Roundtable Talk, Nita, Paul G, Bill BB, Daniel 90. Just want to say a quick hi to everybody. Mile High Hotspur, big up to Leo. He's on a road trip, so he's listening in while he's on the road. Who we got? We got B Knight. So Angelo Tyro. So just wanted to give a shout out to everybody. Really appreciate you all being here. And also, obviously, if you don't know already, get over to Irish Hotspur. We'll be doing a pre-game, and he also does watch-alongs as well as lots of other content with our good friend Jack. So just wanted to get that in quickly. Adrian, shall we move over quickly to the Ipswich game, or you want to speak any more, round off any more about
to last, because it doesn't really take that long to go through the preview. I mean, we could do it now, but as we were talking about the kids,
if you want to dip it, we'll do it to the end and keep on talking.
I want to talk about, because we've talked about the kids, Dave, on the loan watch.
Absolutely.
Let's just talk about. We go through at their clubs individually, right? I don't know if you would have seen a lot of these as I would. I don't know how much Drew has seen of our young kids, right?
Bits and pieces. Yeah, bits and
Keely
pieces.
and Donnelly at Orient. Dave, opinion? Your take?
Look, I've done an interview with a guy when we signed Mason Melia. He's a guy that, he knows his stuff, put it that way, and he's honest. Look, I think Keely will be gone in the summer. I think I think that'll be his choice where he wants to kick on. I think, I think he's been a bit rattled by Kinski coming in and signing for Tottenham Hotspur. I feel like he feels like his pathway is blocked a little bit. And I think that's one that you might see him potentially push for a permanent move in this summer. So I'd keep your eyes on Josh Keeley. Donnelly, look.
13 clean sheets at Orient, Dave.
Yeah, look, he's been absolutely brilliant out of Leyton Orient.
Impressive.
Look, I've always said I think he's a very good goalkeeper, from the people that I spoke to here over in Ireland about him at St. Pat's and that. He's been brilliant. He was brilliant there. They had a lot of high praise for him. I watched him then come in for the under-21s. Originally, he wasn't supposed to come in and be number one. He ended up being thrust straight in there, taking that. I thought he'd done brilliantly. Don't get me wrong. There was aspects of his game that he still needed to work on when we came into that Johnstown Paint Trophy or whatever it is, where he come up against real men, from set pieces and that. He was a little bit vulnerable. Then he got his loan out to where did he go last year? I have Burton in my mind, but I know it's wrong. Can't remember where he was last year, but I tracked his progress all last season. And again, there was a couple of errors there, but by and large, again, the people in around him, the manager, the coaches, the fans, I was regularly checking the fan social media and stuff, really praised him very highly. Great shot stopper, very good with his feet, good sweeper keeper. And now at Leyton Orient, and you got to take into account, I think he's second in the clean sheets, but he didn't play the first 9 games. He came late. So the other goalkeepers around him have all played a lot more games than what he has. So it goes to show how good he's actually been for Leyton Orient. They absolutely love him there. Not to mention the goal that he scored in the FA Cup to help them progress as well. And you've seen against Man City, if anyone watched the game on the telly, again, very good. He's a very good goalkeeper. But with the pathway, with Kinski coming in, being in around the similar age, and again, it comes back to the amount of money that Tottenham has spent on one player and Keeley coming into the academy and coming through, they're going to look favourably on someone like Kinski. Now, look, the reality is you don't know whether Keeley could do better than Kinski because we're not going to give him that opportunity. But I think something went down in pre-season, and that's why you didn't see Kinski go on the pre-season tour or play pre-season like was actually originally planned. When it comes to Jamie Donnelly, I don't understand why we didn't keep this guy around Tottenham Hotspur. Yeah. He was the superstar of that under-21 teams. Everyone went on about Lancashire, and it's like, I was saying to everybody, yeah, but who's the one feeding Lancashire? Who's the one creating everything? Who's the one that makes them tick? Who's the one that grabs the game by the scruff of the neck, pulls the team through? It was Jamie Donnelly, that guy, and I spoke about him all last season. And ironically, a lot of Tottenham fans, I think potentially because they didn't watch him, didn't really want to give him that opportunity. And I think that maybe plays into a part why sometimes they don't get enough opportunities at Tottenham. I think we should be pushing more for these guys to get the opportunities. But look, he's gone out on loan. I don't know what happened there, whether it was his choice or whether it was the club's choice. But he's absolutely ripping it up. It took him a little bit to get going. Originally, I think the manager didn't really, or he laid down a bit of a challenge on Donnelly. He was very harsh on him because he believed in the talent. But then, in and around October, November, he's really took it on and he's really kicked on, and they absolutely love him there. He is a match winner for them. Look at his goal against Man City. Most people will go, what a goal, what a fluke. No, he done that 2 or 3 times last year for the under-21s. He done that, I think, against Liverpool in one of the cup games, if I remember correctly, or one of the games towards the end of the season. He has that bit of je ne sais quoi, that bit of magic, that unpredictability. You go back to the game where we played the Man City Academy on the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. He ripped them apart. Goals, passing it around. It was like a De Bruyne-esque highlight reel. Someone like that shouldn't be on loan at Leyton Orient. He should be in around the Tottenham team. And when you look at the like of James Maddison, sorry, just quickly, when you look at the like of James Maddison and how he peaks basically when he wants to play and when he wants to play well, having someone like Donnelly there, all of a sudden, you don't want to play Maddison, bring in Donnelly. That guy will give absolutely everything. And I feel like we've missed a major trick not keeping this guy around. We look at how, like for me, for instance, I know Drew maybe feels a little bit different, but I think we're so boring to watch going forward. I don't think we score enough goals. I don't think we're good enough going forward. And I think having someone like Donnelly, that unpredictability, someone that can play them balls from different angles, play people in behind, score magnificent goals, I think we've missed a massive trick not having him a part of the team this year. I think someone like him would have actually helped put points on the board.
Big shout out to Wayne Burnett, who runs the under-21s, because Donnelly came in from Northern Ireland as a striker, and he converted him to a number 10. and that kid has got a killer forward defence splitting pass on him. His vision is fan. I mean, he's got a maturity beyond his years for his vision to have that sort of vision. I mean, like Mikey Moore's got it as well. We're blessed in certain departments in that team, and I'm sure
if he was at any other team in the Premier League, he'd be in their first team.
Yeah, and like with Lancashire going to Aberdeen, I mean, 23 goals in the competitions, both competitions they won last year, 30 plus goals in all comps last year, and we farming out to Aberdeen, and yet we loan out Velez, who cost us, I don't know, 15, 20 mil or something like that.
Because he's not even getting played.
No, he wasn't getting played. No, and I'm wondering about the pressing, with them, So yeah, your take on those two, and we move on to the next ones after that, Drew. We got
the one narrative that I would like to suggest with Donnelly is just that this has all been said, and I know there's the argument that he was lighting it up last year, but this all is being said with hindsight of the fact that he is doing very, very well at Orient. So
The thing is, though, Drew, we didn't give him a chance pre-season. We played him left back. We should have played him in one of them positions and actually given him an opportunity to show what he can do in them positions. We just shoot him into left back. That was wrong from the get-go.
I played him at left back, Dave, and he turned up on the right hand side of the opponent's.
Yeah, but and this is just my opinion, right? Because I just think that there's another angle to this. In my opinion, as an 18-year-old in his position, he just should be grateful to be going on the tour.
Agreed.
In my opinion.
Agreed.
We had serious issues at left back at that point because Udogie was out and Reggie, for whatever reason, wasn't fancied and was not being integrated in. So I think personally it was just a case of, hey, we want to give you some time on the field just to give you some time because you're
why not give Bergvall the time out there and put Donnelly in a position and give him the opportunity to shine? Why did they pick Bergvall over Jamie Donnelly?
I mean, I'm not sure, Dave. I'm not there seeing the attitude of the kids there and then. So I
agree with filling in here and there, but at some point they should have given him an opportunity across that forward line or in an attacking position to really show what he could do. When you put an attack, it's like bringing Will Lancashire in and putting him in at centre back and giving him an opportunity. I mean, you're never really giving him an opportunity to really show you what he can do in the position where he's made his name.
Right,
and I think that's where maybe we went a bit wrong. For instance, what I'm getting at is if Bergvall had come through the academy and we had brought Donnelly would have got his chance in that midfield, but we didn't. We gave Bergvall the chance and put Donnelly at left back.
Fair enough. I can't argue with that because you're 100% right, and I don't. There's, as I say, I'm not sure why he wasn't given that chance, but I still would argue that he's a number 10. You've got a first choice in James Maddison, arguably, certainly from a wage structure point of view and a hierarchy point of view, he's ahead of Donnelly. You've then got Kulusevski, who's ahead of Donnelly. So given that you're not entirely sure exactly how much game time you're going to give him, because in a perfect world, you're going to have your two starting number 10s for the majority of the season. Although I'm a fan of keeping players back and sprinkling them into a system that works, i.e., the last 10 minutes of games, keeping him at Spurs, actually integrating him into the system, does it not actually work out that with some hindsight, it actually has worked out better for him to go out? Because although the minutes might not be as high of a quality as the Premier League, he's clearly showing that he exceeds those limits and he's getting far more minutes than he would sitting on the bench at Tottenham or getting 45 minutes at Leyton Orient in the FA Cup.
No, look,
I know it's easy for me to say that with hindsight, but I don't know. I just think.
Do you know what, right?
I get the argument, but I just think it's kind of been and done now. So, let's just reap the benefits of him being where he is. I don't know whether.
I fully understand what you're saying. I think, look, obviously the more game time in a men's league, men's environment, I do think, the earlier you're exposed to that, the better. I fully agree with you on that regard. But you can't help but think, they kept Mikey Moore around. He was given a chance to shine in his proper positions in pre-season. And I just think, Donnelly could have been another one that could have come in and had a bit of an impact like Mikey Moore. You look at Mikey Moore now, many people are asking for him to start because he excites them more than most of whatever else we're seeing. And I think Donnelly's another one of them players. And I just think, would he benefit from the minutes that, say, Mikey Moore has got this season compared to the minutes at Leyton Orient? I think 100% he'd benefit more from the Tottenham minutes because it's at a higher level, at a higher standard. And you're also doing it at a club where you're putting yourself in front of your coaches, the owners, the manager, and the fans' eyes. You go away from Tottenham Hotspur and do that. Name me the last player that's gone away, gone out on loan, and come back into the Tottenham team and succeeded.
Harry Kane.
Right, we'll move on to.
I know. That was years ago. I get it.
We'll move on
about,
to
well, hang on, Adrian. Sorry, just one sec. Because what about? Hang on, I had a point, and I think I might have just lost it. It might have just flitted out of my brain. Yeah, I think it's gone.
All right,
go on. Move on to somebody else. I'll think about it.
Okay, you can come back to it. We'll move on to Vaskovic and Divine. Vaskovic, we bought from Hajduk Split for top money for a kid of his age at the time. And he went from there, playing there, doing well, playing for the Croatia young side. Then he went to Poland, stepped up a grade and a gear, didn't look out of place at all. Ends up at Westerlo, doesn't look out of place, 20-odd games, 6 goals he's got. He's not the quickest. In my opinion, he's the best young centre-back I've seen at his age. And that's saying something. Alfie Devine, unfortunately, missed the season because when he was for Phillips at Plymouth or Portsmouth, was it? When he was there, they changed the coach and he didn't get the game time. And I was half gutted for the kid because he was at Port Vale and that. And like, this kid is another one like Donnelly, can play in the 10. We're not short of players that can... But he can play wide right and as a cam as well. I mean, like, he's so versatile. So is Donnelly as well. So is Mikey Moore. These players are so.
Oh, hang on. Sorry, quick question. It's come back to me. Do we know for sure whether Donnelly... Because it's one thing if he was shipped out on loan, but do we know whether potentially he was asked the question, hey, do you want to stay at Tottenham and get some minutes potentially? Or do you want to go out on loan and actually like embed yourself in a team 60, 70, 80 minutes every week and build your life? Because if that was an option and he has chosen that, then you can't really throw that at the club or Ange for letting him go and do that if they've given him both, right? And if we don't know that, then I don't, I might just be clutching.
No. Look, I get what you're saying, and look, I think that's the case with some of the youngsters. I think some of them did push their way out and said, "Look, I don't want to sit around for my chance. I want to go out and play." I can't speak for Donnelly. I do not know. Okay. I would presume that's the case for some of the youngsters, or from some of the reports that were put out. Some of them did push to go out, right. But again, you got a talent like that.
You would argue that you would know that you've got that sort of talent, and you would keep him back, and you say, "Hang on,
yeah." You know what I mean?
Maybe we've just got too many of them, Dave. Maybe we've just got too many of them. It's like spinning plates.
It's not a bad thing to have, but then you look at some of the money we're going out and spending and bringing in. Are they much better than some of what's coming through the academy? I'm not quite so sure, and this is where I do think Tottenham need to be a bit braver, and someone needs to come in. A bit like what Pochettino, when he came in, there was a lot of old players here on big wages. He cleared it out, went to the academy, brought players through, and it brought about the rebirth of Tottenham Hotspur, pushed us forward. He pulled in young players that were notoriously sent out on loan, pulled them in, gave them an opportunity. And I think it's just waiting for someone to be brave enough to do that at Tottenham.
No, that's fair enough.
While you're there, Dave, how much have you seen of Vaskovic and Divine?
Oh, look, Vuskovic, as soon as he arrives next season, I'm getting him on the back of a jersey. I think this guy is going to go on and be absolutely brilliant. You look at the potential, the size of the kid, what he's done in Poland, what he's doing out in Belgium, for his age, he's already a man, at a superior level than the players in that league. Scores goals, gets about, good on the ball, But you know what, Adrian, I'm not entirely convinced Tottenham see him as a centre-back. I wouldn't be surprised to see him come in here and play in that midfield or in a holding midfield role for Tottenham.
He has
I
played
really
as
wouldn't.
a
I think
6
he's
as
good
well,
for it.
Dave. He has played as a 6. And he's not, if he's got one thing, he's young though. He's not the quickest. So in the leagues he's been scoring goals, fine. If he's going up for set plays or free kicks, fine.
Someone like him, though, with the
if he
equipment.
proves that he isn't as quick for the Premier League, he's a class player, though. Class player. If he proves he isn't as quick, I want him staying back more, like, you know, and being like, I mean, normally you'd have your fastest centre back like VDV hanging back, like, but I don't want him in the Premier League. You'll get found out if you go forward and you're slow. You'll get caught in no man's land, you know. And I like, so anyway, I'm sure the coaches will get around that. Divines, I mean, like, I feel sorry for the kid losing that year, virtually using it a bit of his development, because he's a baller. I mean, he carried Port Vale at times when he was there.
No, Divine, I really like Divine, but again, I think, you know, when you look at him, he's done well out on the right when he's played there in pre-season for Tottenham, you know, and notoriously he's a number 10. I think, you know, is he suffering from what's his best position? And I think even when he goes out on loan, you know, does the manager also sit there and go, what's his best position? He's a good player, but what position does he really excel in? I think he might take a little bit longer than someone like a Donnelly. But look, the pressure's on him now. You know, he was once what people were talking about Donnelly to a certain degree. You know,
he got that goal against Marine in the FA Cup when he was 15.
But even before we signed him, you know, he came with a big reputation, you know, for what he was doing in England underage groups and stuff like that. But look, you know, he's playing a lot of games out there in Belgium. It's at a bit of a higher quality. So, you know, I think it'll do him well. And he's playing in his favourite position out there as well, in the number 10 role. So,
Drew, have you got anything to say on that? Or have you gone to get a drink or something?
Oh no, I'm here.
Do you know much about Vaskovic and Divine?
I mean, I've just what I've seen from the highlight reels of Vaskovic. I mean, yeah, so you've both said, he just looks like an absolute man mountain. He takes me back to my school days.
You don't loan him out in the summer. You put him straight in the school.
When I attempted to try and play football at school, and I wasn't amazing at it, unfortunately. But I remember this kid called Steve Harris, actually. I don't know if he was a long lost relation to you, Dave, but his legs were like trees compared to mine, which at the time were quite slender little things. But yeah, it just goes to show, like, some people just grow different, don't they? And that kid just looks huge. But yeah, it looks good with it. Like, as I say, very good in the air. He looks good, competent defensively. He put it about a little bit, but I mean, yeah, look, once in, I don't want to say generational talent, because I think that gets banded about a little too much, but certainly, you know, top of the class or top of the age group, like as Dave says there. But yeah, certainly one of those guys that you would pick out of a crowd. As far as Divine, I'm not too sure. I've not seen too much of him. I think I'm sure he was at Plymouth Argyle, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I saw him do some bits and pieces there, but he kind of fell off a little bit, and I've just not seen too much of him abroad, really.
Dave, Ashley Phillips, 6'4", another kid who's been put in a grow bag. Watched him at Blackburn, see little clips of him, watched him in the under-21s. He could move that ball forward as well, can't he, in the midfield when he's in a mood?
Do you know what? I think that's initially why they sent him out on loan. Look, when I watched the two of them side by side at centre back for the under-21s, I think when you look at Phillips, maybe physically he was probably a bit more ready than Dorrington, but I've always said I think Dorrington is far superior on the ball. Dorrington was the one that progressed that ball a lot of the time for the under-21s over Ashley Phillips. You know, you only go back to the under-17 Cup final, or was it the under-18, where he ran, you know, through the middle with the ball to set up one of the goals and stuff. For me, I think Dorrington is a far superior player than Ashley Phillips. I just think Ashley Phillips has size and maybe more physical ready for the demands of the Premier League. But I think, you know, the reason why I think that's why they sent him out on loan, to try and develop on the ball. And I think Plymouth was the right choice, because they did bring in the manager that brought in Divine as well, and he wanted to try and play football out from the back and stuff like that. And I think what you're seeing on with his loan at Stoke this year, from what I've seen so far anyway, through clips and watching bits and pieces of their game, he has become a lot better in terms of transitioning that ball. So I think, again, he'll be an interesting one come the summer. You know, I think I think next season, ideally, you want to have 5 centre-backs. So I think one of the youngsters will stay around. And I think with him maybe having that bit of extra experience, because he was playing for Blackburn before he even came to Tottenham, by the way. He's playing in the Championship. I think that might...
We don't know, Dave, what the situation is, whether they're going to extend Davies' contract, whether Romero will stay, because he'll be on 2 years of his contract. He's either got to sign the new one, they're offering him a mega deal. Maybe he's got to sign a new one or you sell him.
Yeah, well, look, I think Davies has been good this year, but I do think there comes a part where you have to sort of look towards the future. And I think, I would prefer to give someone like Ashley Phillips or Dorrington, keep them around and give them an opportunity than say Ben Davies. I think, with Danzo, I really like Danzo. So for me, I think a lot of it also depends on Dragusin, with his agent. Does he want to be kept around? Does he not? So I think there's a lot of if and buts, and with Viskovic coming in as well. But I do think one of them will be kept around next year.
You seem
in terms of that, he's having a great time.
I expected, I think I've said this to Dave, I thought that when Phillips went to Stoke, it was more of a shop window thing, because I'm in agreement with Dave. I think Dorrington's far superior on the ball. And I think Phillips maybe is at Stoke because Stoke play a bit more rigid. And I guess not that I've watched much of them, to be honest with you. So that's just me being... it's just me assuming, really, to be perfectly honest with you, and that might just be a brutal assumption. I might just be completely wrong, but you hear Stoke and you think cold Tuesday night, and you think pretty rigid, defensively. He's big, he's tall. I'm sure he's pretty good in the air, but I just think, his shortcomings were his passing out from the back. So I was kind of thinking that was maybe more where they were leaning to. Dorrington would stay, maybe Phillips goes. But I'm not sure. I mean, like you say, if we get to the summer and Liverpool are sniffing around VDV and Romero's already got his head turned, I mean, we might be looking at these guys thinking, what do we do? Do we need to keep some of them, or not sure.
We'll move on. I think we can skip Velez. He's got a hat trick and all that. He's getting some game time. He's not. I think we're going to sell him, to be honest. Espanyol, Gil's been doing okay there. He's not fit for the Premier League, and he's like, But Solomon at Leeds, 6 goals and 6 assists. It might be more than that now, actually. If by the time I rip this banner, I'd like to have another look at him. I mean, he came from Shakhtar Donetsk for nothing. It cost us nothing, so we're going to make money on him if we sell him. But he kept Mudryk out of the Shakhtar Donetsk sides, and Chelsea paid, 95, 105 million for Mudryk or something like that?
But you can't really pay too much attention what Chelsea do in terms of the market. I mean, they throw money around like it's confetti. So any normal club, I don't think would have paid that for Mudryk. So I don't. But you make a good point. He did sort of keep him out the side, but I don't know.
He had two cameos. He had two small. Sorry, Dave. He had 2 small cameos for us, about 10 or 15-minute games, and then he had his best game away at Burnley when we won 5-2, and then he made me set up because with a lot of wingers that dribbling and tricky, fine. What's your vision like? Can you lay people in properly if you're not scoring? And he did it against Burnley away. He gives Sonny 2 assists for his hat trick, and he's a dribbler as well. I don't know. Sometimes players come and go, but we don't see them in training. I think, I'd like to see more of that player before we got rid of him. But then you've got to trust your coaches and your managers on the training ground and think, either your attitude stinks or you're just not good enough. I mean, I don't know. I don't think
it's either of them. I think he's a very good player. I just don't think he's built for the Premier League. Before he had a stint at Fulham the season before. He was injured for most of it. Came to Tottenham, injured again. And I just don't think he's built and has the rigors for what we need. And I think as long as he's even at Leeds, I think half of his appearances have been off the bench. He hasn't started every game like people are professing with him. So for me, I think he's at Leeds with a potential of Leeds looking to do a deal for him, just like we done with Joe Roden. To a large degree.
Just to play devil's advocate real quick, Dave, because I know you like to do that. Is there not something to be said for coming back off of a really, really bad injury? He's being kind of eased back into these games with substitute appearances, and he's adding numbers to sub appearances. You know what I mean? It's like if you take his minutes and see what the output is versus appearances and see what the output is. I don't know. I haven't done that, but we might be pleasantly surprised. But again, Faz Radfar 4, Spurs 1. Mano is not the level we need for the Premier League. So, you know, he could be very much onto something anyway.
Right, Min Hyuk, Yang Min Hyuk. I watched him in the K-League. I watched quite a few video clips of him. Can't compare the K-League to the Premier League, obviously. This kid is fast. One thing he's got an abundance. And he does score bangers. He does score from outside the box, which is what you want. You want to see this. Yeah, he's getting quite... now he's getting good reviews at QPR. I haven't seen enough of him to form an opinion, to be honest. I mean, like, you need a bigger sample, you know. I don't know if you two have had a chance to glance at him at all.
I haven't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Dave?
All right, we'll move on. Gunter's
What, Dave? You seen it all about?
Again, I think it comes down to being built for the Premier League. I just don't think he's anywhere near physically or body type ready for the Premier League.
Because you do get the exceptions like Modric, Ozzy Ardiles, and players like that. You know, there are diminutive players that do make it. They seem to be able to just skate across the pitch. Gunter at Wealdstone, I'm a big fan. I've got to be honest, Dave, I haven't seen as much of Keeley as you would have had, but I watched a lot of Gunter last season. I am very impressed with this guy. Unfortunately, he let 4 in for Wealdstone. I don't know if they've played games since I made this banner, but he is... I suppose it's like all goalkeepers. You want to, when people say to me, "Oh, you're a good shot stopper," hang about it. That's just the number one prerequisite you want of every goalkeeper. A good shot stopper, isn't it? I mean, you don't excuse a goalkeeper for that. He made some fantastic saves last year. So now you're looking at what's he like from just set pieces and crosses and corners and things like that into the box. So he might have a bit of a weakness there, but he's young. But some of the saves he made, I mean, like, well. I like him. I like him a lot. I mean, I don't know if he'll end up with Spurs or not. I don't know, you know. But what's your take on Gunter, Dave? Are you a big fan or?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Gunter. I think, you know, watching him last season, I thought he was absolutely brilliant. And, you know, I get what you're saying, being a good shot stopper is sort of the prerequisite, but, you know, it was one-on-one saves he pulls off, game winning saves he pulls off, you know, saves that you think, oh, that's in as soon as you see it. And then all of a sudden he gets an outstretched hand. You know, I thought he was very, very good last year for the under-21s. Putting some big performances, some big shifts for them. And I think, look, you got to understand, with a goalkeeper going out on loan, it doesn't really matter where he goes, whether it's top or the bottom of the league. It's just about getting him out there, facing shots, getting game time. And that's what you're doing with Gunter. And for a young 18-year-old to be going out on loan and getting regular game time, I mean, it's absolutely crucial. You don't want to end up like Alfie Whiteman, do you?
No. DJ Whiteman.
No. Yeah. I mean, I watch Whiteman, the game I see Whiteman play. No, like he gave away a penalty and blah, blah. I wasn't impressed with Whiteman at all. Austin used to be the under-21 goalkeeper. He's 25, 26. And watching them under-21s last year, the positions we didn't hear any raving about were like fullbacks, you know. And if Austin was playing really that well and all that, we'd have heard rave reviews about him before. He did well to become the under-21 goalkeeper, but what goes against him, why he ain't getting picked, is because of his kicking. Kinski and Vicario, their kicking is better, whereas Austin really doesn't kick, neither does Forster, you know. Let's move on to Ipswich away. Injury woes. Only 6 now instead of what it was 14 max. Romario, Dragosin, Solanke, Werner, and Richarlison and VDV.
Usually I'd say 6 is a lot, but I'm actually relieved now.
I know, right?
And the difference, I mean, look, the last 2 league games, we've kept clean sheets. We won away at Brentford.
Yeah.
And beat Man United at home with a clean sheet. And anybody who had a 1-0 scoreline probably would have cleaned up. Yeah. So, predicted lineup, guys. Right now, goalkeeper. Who's starting? Vicario, Kinski. It's not going to be Austin, that's for sure.
Big Vic, isn't it? Big Vic. He had a great game on his return. I think he's obviously Aaron just said he's the number 1, so there's no reason to think he wouldn't be.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with that. Look, I think with Kinski, look, don't get me wrong, I think he's got insane potential there, but I think it's night and day in terms of readiness for the big occasion. I think what you're seeing with Kinski is, yeah, he came in and had 2 good games, but look at the game since then. He's made a lot of mistakes. And I think with Vicario, I think it goes to show that, there is a lot to be said for a guy that is a leader, that, the experience and stuff like that. And I think to Drew's point, as well, Postecoglou said he's coming straight back in. He's our number 1. So I don't think there's a debate about it. I think Kinski will have to be content with riding the bench for the rest of the season.
I like his confidence, Kinski. I like the way he commands his area as well, especially when he's made those errors. Other goalkeepers could have crumbled and been shaky, but he wasn't. He sort of seemed to accepted it and got on with it. So I like the look of him, but he's raw, isn't he? He's raw. So
yeah. I think Vicario, you could see, I think when he came back in, I think there was a little bit about him that I think he was making a point on a couple of plays to be like, hey, this is me, I'm back. He was being very, very loud, very vocal. There's a couple of points he was making himself extremely big and kind of pushing the team forward. And I think he was just, peacocking a little bit and just showing his feathers and just, making a bit of a statement. And he had a great game.
Right. Who's playing at fullback, guys? I mean, does Spence move to the right and you Doggy come in and Porro get the rest, which I think a lot of fans would call for? Or is it or does Spence stay at left back? I mean, and on that, do you think Ange, because, Udogie, to me, Udogie doesn't invert like a lot of fans say when they criticise Ange's system, whereas Porro does on the other side, which is why you don't get the overloads on the right when Johnson's in, and sometimes Johnson seems to be left out of the game. But Spence, though, he seemed to cope well on that left-hand side, even against Salah and all that. But he does invert, though, Dave. So does Ange really see him as his right back, or can you see him playing mainly as a left back in this team?
Well, I don't really care. I think Spence has to play. He's come in, he's producing man-of-the-match performances. He's locked up the league's best wingers. For me, he has to stay. He has to play. I don't care whether it's right or left. I think the fact that you see him playing the way he is over on the left-hand side shows the quality of what he actually possesses. And it makes me sort of think, what could this guy do down the right-hand side? And I go back to the Southampton game, straight away, 20 seconds, gets turned on the ball in behind, 1-0 up. So for me, I think he's got to play. He's the best informed fullback we've got. Then it comes down to Pedro Porro, Destiny Udogie, and I think it comes down to what do you need on the given game. I think, look, with Porro, I don't think he backs himself defensively. I think that's why you constantly see him almost tucking in behind the centre-back, looking for help. When I've played in teams, it's usually the players that have been spun or caused a lot of mistakes, not a lot of confidence, where they tuck in beside you, and they often call for that help or jockey off, call for that help to come across. So I think, but Pedro Porro gives you the ability to be able to put the ball in over the top, cross the ball from different angles, open up the play. Now, if Romero was fit and available, I'd say, drop Porro, because Romero could do that. But the reality is you don't have anyone else across the back line that can do that. So I think that keeps Pedro Porro on the team. And I think Destiny Udogie, I don't want to see the guy rush back, to be quite frank with you. I mean, a big part of the problem why he never really got a chance to really hit the ground running this season was because last year he went injured, caused us a huge problem. We knew he had to have surgery. We knew he'd be late back or we'd be thrusting him back early into action. We didn't go and sign another left back, which meant we had to play and we had no other option. And then, he wasn't fully fit. He was carrying an injury, so he couldn't really do what he was producing the season beforehand. And then, he goes out injured again because we can't rest him. We can't give him time to recover and stuff like that. So for me, I think this time around, in order so you don't damage the kid moving forward, and this isn't, you do long-term damage, I think it's only right you take the time to bring him back. So I think you will see Porro and Spence yet again. But going forward, when Udogie is back fit, I want to see Jed Spence and Destiny Udogie. I think it'll solidify our defence. I think you look at 2 explosive options from full back going forward with the ball. I think it gives you a bit of everything you need.
Drew,
and I think they can defend one-on-one.
Drew, I mean, Porro is technically superb, right? But with him being out of position for goals, and people talk about it when he's good and he gets the volley or he contributes, and gets an assist. Is there really a net gain with him over a season that warrants him in this team? Is there a net gain with him? Do you think there is overall that makes him a worthwhile squad member than being sold even?
That's a big call. I mean,
You don't
right
sell him.
now, no, you can't sell him. I mean, not unless he wants to go.
You
in
want
which
to have
case-
good options. You keep him
No,
there as
absolutely.
an option. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think just with the way that Spencer's played recently, like Dave said, I mean, I can't really say much more than that. Dave's pretty much just nailed all of that. You can't, you can't not play Spence. He's been fantastic. I don't want to rush Udogie back for the simple fact that we don't learn our lessons. But where I will slightly contradict that is that, you've got to keep playing Porro in that instance. What I think probably ideally I'd like to see is Spence for probably 60 minutes on the left, 60, 70 minutes, Porro on the right for 60 or 70. And then you bring Udogie in, you move Spence over to the right, and you give Porro an hour, 70 minutes. Because, I mean, at this point now, you would think that should be enough rest. I mean, we've already had just the last week off and the previous week off. So you would like to think their batteries are somewhat recharged at this point. They've been doing training. He might have learned how to be a bit more right back and a bit less right wing back this week. Let's hope. But yeah, I'd like to see, equal time probably between the three of them. But obviously, Spence being the mainstay.
Dave, Spence, England aren't exactly blessed at left back. Do you think he could do a job for England? I mean, they've got to play Latvia and Albania in the international break coming up.
Look, I said it, I think, a couple of months ago. I think if Thomas Tuchel has watched a lot of Tottenham games or games that Tottenham have been involved in this season, and if Jed Spence isn't on his radar to have a look at, then I don't know what England are doing. For me, I think he's a shoo-in. I think he's England's best fullback, actually. If he could do it right and left back, I think it automatically goes in as England's best fullback. I think defensively, I think he doesn't make any mistakes. No one skins him, locks up the best wingers in world football. And going forward, he's much better than Kyle Walker ever was. So for me, I think, I think he's got to play. I think you've got to get him into that squad. If you don't, then Thomas Tuchel ain't your guy.
Well, it's a good job, Drew, that Girona didn't cough up the 8.5 mil because he's worth about 45, 50 mil now, isn't he?
I think, I mean, at least, to be honest with you, if we, we always get quoted these insane prices. I mean, I'm not being funny. Brennan Johnson was 47 million. Jed Spence needs to be about 60, doesn't he? Come on.
Don't think we're getting many players, though, Galactico prices no more. I think
no
clubs in Italy are still
Galactico price
recovering from long COVID. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Financially, that is. Dave, centre backs. Looks like we're down to 3, unless Ange brings a surprise and VDV, because VDV's virtually back. But I just think frightened to push him in here, right? But Ipswich away. I didn't put VDV in here deliberately, although Ange surprised us before. We didn't expect to see Odegaard on the bench last week, you know what I mean? Things like that. So there was others on there. So
I think it's got to be Danzo and Davies. Look, I think Gray's been absolutely exceptional. I think he's been absolutely brilliant. And I think it's harsh on the kid. But hopefully it frees him up to be able to play in the midfield, or at least, well, actually no, until Gray, until Van de Ven and Romero are back, or one of them, I think he'll always be kept as an option at centre back, actually thinking about it. But I think Davies, look, as much as I rated him over the years, and I think rightly so, again, I still question, is he performing? Because his contract is coming up. He's on 80 odd grand a week. He ain't going to get that on his next contract going anywhere else, but he might at Tottenham with an extension. So for me, I question how much of it is motivated down to getting a new contract at Tottenham. So I'm weary about giving him one, although I can't disagree. The fucker's kind of earned it. I think he's been absolutely brilliant this year. And I think Danzo, I actually really like what I look of him. Yeah, he looks a bit awkward on the ball, but for me, as a defender, I think he's absolutely solid. I really like what I see. So I think it's got to be Davies and Danzo. Double D. Let's go. I like double Ds.
Do you think, David, you think part of that awkwardness might be just obviously getting used to new players and maybe Porro not being where he thinks Porro should be? Because there was a couple of instances in that Aston Villa game where I think he turned and looked to try and check it to Porro, and Porro was halfway up the pitch. Part of that's just obviously getting used to stuff.
I think there's an element. I think, once he's maybe used to a lot of what's going on around in the movement, I think you might see him being a bit better on the ball. But it's just more so looking at him. He's just not a natural mover on the football. For me, when I was growing up, there was sort of two types. There was a type where you look at and go natural football or natural talent. And then you had your bruisers who worked hard, could do the other side of the game effectively. And I think Danzo is one of them guys for me.
Right. Yeah, fair play. You got those players that look silky on the ball, and then you got those players that look like Carlton Palmer.
I like what I like about Danso. He seems to have the football IQ of a centre back. He knows danger. His positioning's good. Like, he's good in the air, and he he knows when Porro's going forward. Because I'm always looking for when Porro goes forward. Where's our right-sided midfielder? Where's our right-sided centre back? And the centre back just can't come across and split the centre backs. They can't be split. So if Porro's going forward, they should know in coaching that the whole back four's got to move to the right slightly. Just move over to the right together, because you're now covering for Porro up there, and the right-sided midfielder, whether that's Sarr or whoever. Right, moving on to midfield gets trickier now, guys.
Just quickly, Adrian.
Go on.
Big up David Clark. Lovely to see you as always.
Yeah, big up, Dave.
I got to call you out for this a little bit. Gray played 28 times a fullback for Leeds United last season, yet Spurs fans think there is a Franz Beckenbauer in Gray, which is hilarious. Nobody on God's green earth is saying that he's Franz Beckenbauer, but do you not think, David Clark, that you could give some credit to an 18-year-old who plays as a six, who was playing as a fullback, who is now playing as a centre-back and actually not doing too bad?
And he's played on the left and the right.
David, again, thank you so much for being here, but you give the kid a little break. No one's saying he's Beckenbauer.
I think what you got to also look at, though, Davey, look, I understand, let's not get too carried away. He's only 18. There a lot could happen between 18 and 21 in terms of injuries or stuff like that. But I think it's very impressive to note that a guy has been come into a Premier League club. He's had to be patient. And then all of a sudden, when we've given these opportunities, he's been at either side on the fullbacks or left-sided centre-back or right-sided centre-back. And he's looked better than someone like Radu Dragusin. I think it does show the measure of the guy. When I look at Archie Gray, some of the goals we've conceded or stuff, I don't think I can put him at blame for any of them, to be quite frank. I think he's been absolutely brilliant in terms of positioning, but also in terms of being on the ball. I think he's been absolutely brilliant.
And on that, Dave, he's 18 and he's played 30. Look at the bottom of this thing, 33 games, 33 appearances, right? I mean, for an 18-year-old, the Premier League, they won't have all been 90 minutes, but it's phenomenal. I mean, he's a phenomenal talent, and we don't really know what his final position will be.
Yeah.
We assume it's going to be in midfield, but
I think it will eventually.
I think that could be determined come the end of the season. If certain midfielders like Basuma, I think, is the biggest one under threat out of all the midfielders, because it won't be the Gray or Bergvall. So then Madison gives you so much. Well, we'll get onto the midfielders now. Madison gives you so much more. Gives you so much. In his stats, he's had 32 games, right? 32 games, 10 goals and 6 assists, right? So people are thinking, I think they've been, I've critiqued Madison when I thought he's not been at it, but we're entitled to do that as fans, but he is a quality footballer. What's the biggest frustrating thing for all of us is the total lack of consistency of our midfield. If the midfield don't perform, we all know most games are won and lost in midfield. They're the link from the defence to the attack. If the midfield don't perform, you're not going to win the game. Most of the times you will not win the game, so we'll go back to this link. Where's the midfielders? This is where it gets trickier. As more players are fit, it just makes predicting a starting lineup even harder. And even one player can alter the permutations immensely. So, Drew, who's your three midfielders? If Kulu's not out on the wing, I've got him on as a striker as well in the next banner.
I think he goes Bentancur, Bergvall, Maddison. No, Bentancur, Bergvall, Kulu. No. Do we know if Johnson? Is Johnson
Maddison
back?
played well against Man United, right, for a good hour or so,
didn't he?
right? Yeah.
No, do you know what? I actually think he's going to go Bentancur, Bergvall, Maddison, Kulu, and I think Kulu's playing on the right again, and I think he's going to bring Johnson as an impact sub. I don't think Johnson's going to start. So I think even though you've got him as the midfield, I think Kulu's going to start.
We will juggle this. We'll go midfield, we'll go strikers, then we'll come back because this is not easy, right?
Yeah.
You going? What three would you pick here, Dave?
Mercedes Benton class. I know Drew thinks, I heard him say earlier on, people go over the top, but I really, truly do think he is an absolute player. Don't get me wrong. He's had, his injury problems, suspension problems, he's had that bad game against Aston Villa, but I do genuinely think we look like a much more better team and a much more composed team with him in that deeper role. So I think he's got to play. Basuma is completely unreliable. Sarr, I really like Sarr. I think he should be playing away against personally, just for his industrious nature, his work rate and that. But I think he'd probably be on the bench. Personally, I would actually go with Maddison and Kulusevski. I think I want to get back to having Bentancur there and him giving the ball to Maddison and Kulu in central areas, getting them turned and feeding the wingers or the strikers in behind. I want to get back to that. I think that's when it excited me most, when the two of them were playing there. However, I have huge problems with James Maddison. I've made no secret about it. I think he performs when he wants to perform or when he wants to prove a point. But the problem is he doesn't do it consistently. And that's my big problem with James Maddison. And I think, Roy Keane was right to say what he said about him. And I also think Simon Jordan followed it up perfectly. You won't win anything with someone like James Maddison. And I firmly believe that, At Tottenham, he's one of your experienced players and you need him to be on it every week. If you want to go and win games consistently, you got to go and score goals. And you need someone like him, your lock picker, to be on it every week, just like Christian Eriksen was or Luka Modric was in years gone by, Gareth Bale. You got to rely on him. And unfortunately, Maddison has shown over the 2 years since he's been here, he can't be relied on and he can't be trusted to do it week in, week out. So for me, I'll give him one last chance, but he's got to have a one heck of the end of the campaign for me to sit here and say, I don't think we need another creative player in here in the summer, because if he doesn't, that's one of the first places I'll be going into the market for this summer, is another creative player to put the competition on him.
Lee, mate, I could see Basuma going. No way Sarr going because Angela loves him, right?
There's no way Sarr's leaving, though.
No. Maddison for captain. This kid isn't. So I need to pick three for the midfield. Let me get back. If you was going all out skill ready, you'd be going Bergvall, Maddison and Kulusevski. But then you'd have a very weak midfield, and Ipswich will work hard. That's one thing So you'd need a Sarr, Basuma or Bentancur behind. I mean, I would go Maddison and Kulusevski. And obviously Kulu would be playing as the battering ram, pushing forward a bit more, which should give Maddison more space in midfield to work. So, and then Bentancur. I mean, I know Drew wasn't impressed with him when we played Brentford. I thought it was excellent, right?
Yes, so did I.
It's just perception. I mean, sometimes it's the way you watch the game. If I'm really watching a specific player, I can miss other stuff that's gone on, right? Watch highlights later and think, oh shit, didn't really see that, or didn't perceive that rather. Yeah, Bentancur. I just don't trust Basuma. He dwells on the ball. He goes wandering about. And when he wanders wide right or wide left, when he loses the ball, he leaves gaping holes in the midfield, right? There's gaping holes there. And then square balls across the midfield when who scored against us? Was it Liverpool or Villa or something? I can't remember now anyway. Right, we move on to the attack. And we might have to come back to this if you changed any of them. Right. We got Son, Tell, Scarlett, Johnson, Odobert, and Kulusevski. We know they're all fit.
I think he goes Son, Tell, and Kulusevski and brings on Johnson and Odobert as impact subs.
I think he's going to surprise us. I think Son and Tell start.
Why is there no Mikey Moore on the list?
Yeah, that's true. Why have I left out Mikey Moore? Yeah.
Oh, faux shame, Adrian. Faux shame.
No, I pride myself on my thoroughness. Don't worry. After this podcast, I'll go up to the bathroom and I'll give myself the right talking to. There'll be lots of finger pointing.
Right,
lots of finger pointing in the mirror.
Well, I'll tell you what. The last time out against
I love
Ipswich,
Mikey Moore. No one's eulogised more about him than I have, right? So yeah, I forgot Mikey
Moore.
Out
against Ipswich, it was Vicario in goal, Porro, Romero, Dragoshin, Doggy, Kulusevski, Bentancur, Sarr, Johnson, Solanke, Son. And bear in mind, and people seem to forget this, and I know not all of them played, but they did play Galatasaray.
I didn't miss him out. Look, there's a glitch.
You know, there you go. Look, they did play Galatasaray about 60 hours prior to that, while Ipswich had a full rest. I mean, I know not really an excuse because you should still be beating Ipswich at home. But if you look at the fact that the squad wasn't sufficiently built on in the summer, then there is an argument that the reason we have been left wanting in games like this is because we don't have the legs to go in all these competitions. So that's just my 2 cents on that. But you would, and the one thing I'll say about Bentancur just quickly, maybe I just expect too much, but for a guy his age who is supposed to be arguably, I don't want to say the general, but he is one of the elder statesmen. He's got 3 Serie A titles under his belt. I just expect more from a player like that. I just want him to be a bit more, I don't know. The injuries aside, the injuries are obviously horrible, but he did himself no favours in the summer. And I just think the rash yellow card the other week to get himself suspended for a game that we really didn't need to get him suspended for, after he's already had another 2 games out with a concussion that was, by all accounts, a little bit stupid. I just think I just want a consistent 18 months out of the guy. And maybe, completely turn it around. But I just think he's a little sideways merchant is harsh. But yeah, we'll wait and see. I just want a little bit more from him. If he was 22 and being this silly, then fair enough. But he's a bit older now.
Clark, I'm going to come through some of the players and their performances this season.
Whoa.
We're nearly done here, and we'll go back because I definitely do not agree with your statement, mate. I respect your opinion, but I don't agree with your statement, right? So let's go through these. Oh, I need to get on the spot for that one. Okay.
Big up, Sam. Yeah, I guess it is a little.
Right, let's go back to the banners. So we were on the forwards. Yeah, I would go Son and Tell, and I've got Kulu in my midfield, so I wouldn't actually be surprised if Mikey Moore starts. He's far more talented than Johnson is. I've warmed to Johnson. I've warmed to him. What was your picks again, Drew? Did you pick your 3?
I said Son, Tell, and Kulu, and then Johnson and Odobert to be impact subs. As much as I love Mikey Moore, I think we're at the point now where, with players coming back, needing to get minutes in legs, and there being a desire from Ange, and I think probably the players as well, even though we've got the European games, we need to get as far up this table as possible. And I think hierarchy to a certain extent comes into play here. And with the need to get minutes in players' legs. And I just think with the effectiveness that Johnson can possess at the back stick sometimes and in the box, I just think, and with Odobert being out for so long, I just think there might be a bit of a desire to give them minutes over Moore at the moment.
Well,
and
this is it.
I don't know if that's right or wrong.
We're talking about starting lineups when we know that Ange will probably make subs on the hour mark anyway. So players will get minutes. I mean, like Son and Tell will start definitely.
We've also got to think that we got Man City on Wednesday, right? So this is a fairly quick turnaround. So I think there may be, I think you could see subs on 60, 70 minutes and him try and go full force in both these games. Because then I think, what, you got 10 days off then until AZ? Or no, not 8 days. 8 days.
You've got the World Cup qualifiers. We've got Albania at home on March the 21st and Albania on March the 24th. So
that doesn't affect the Europa League fixtures. They're on the 6th and the 13th.
I mean, these are the fixtures coming up. We like say Ipswich away, 3:00. Man City at home, and then that's the 26th. Then we got a break, roughly. 26th. Then Thursday, 6th of March, we got the Alkmaar away.
Yeah, so it's 8 days.
Bournemouth at home, then Alkmaar. Then they've moved the Fulham fixture here now to Sunday the 16th. And then we've got nothing. Then you've got the international break. So from the 16th virtually to the 2nd of April, depending on what players are away on international duty in our squad, quite a few players there are going to get a rest.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with the players coming back and with the, I mean, I'm saying this with cross fingers because I do hope that people sort of not necessarily come back, hit the ground running, but there's no breakdowns, right? You don't want players coming back and breaking down again. So if you can get away with sprinkling them in over the next couple of games, the Ipswich and the Man City game, I think we're all agreed that we all want to win the Europa League. So we're probably going to go all out for the Alkmaar.
Yeah.
The Bournemouth games at home, which is nice, even though it's not ideal. That's the one you're coming back to. And I don't think, it's not just us that play badly after a European tie. I don't think
it's a short trip as well. It's not a long trip for these 2 legs. It's not a long trip. It's Holland, isn't it? It's only a couple of hours away. Right. So
big up Lee. You can tell the international break's coming up because Romero's almost fit again.
He'd be fit. Yeah. Until we get to the end of March and then we get Chelsea away. On the European scene, really, Champions League qualification could actually go to 7th Premier League position if England clubs get the 5th spot through the best European coefficient, which our teams are doing well, and 2 more spots through winning the Europa League and the Champions League. It could go to 7. How many UEFA Cup places are there? 2?
2.
2. 9. One from the league and one from the FA Cup.
And so if that happened and we got the 2 UEFA Cup leagues in the conference, it could go to 10 spots.
You could have 11 English teams in Europe.
In which case, I hope we finish 11th. I do not want that Europa Conference. Right? So, I want to... Right. Let's go through to sort of... Where's my list? Hang on. Let's go up to the players. Performances, roughly. I've got 3 banners on this because it took a bit long actually to do this. Right. These are players' performances so far this season. Son, 33 appearances, not 3 games, 10 goals, 8 assists. That's all competitions. Not a bad return for someone who's on his last legs, although he needs to show if he has a rest and shows a bit more zip. He's showed a bit more energy lately, though. I've seen him play like. Lanky, 29 games, appearances.
I mean, I'll say from even just from glancing into that, Adrian, because you don't necessarily need to read it all out. But the one nice thing about in years gone past, especially the last 4 or 5 years, that would have been Kane with double goals, double assists, Son with double goals, potentially double assists, and everybody else on next to nothing. It would have been sparse, in my opinion. You'd have had a couple of goals from midfield, maybe somebody on 5 or 6, somebody on 7 or 8, with a couple of assists to his name. But the fact that you've got 10 goals, 8 assists, 11 and 6, 12 and 3, all right, it could be better. But 9 and 10 from Kulu, 10 and 6 from Maddison. I mean, I think the spread is a little bit better than years gone by. I don't know if you'd agree, Dave, if that echoes what you would have said or no.
How do you think Frankie's done for his first season, David? 29 games, 11 goals, 6 assists.
Look, I think he works incredibly hard. I don't think we create enough for him, to be quite frank, and I think he's done well to sort of gather them numbers over this season. But
correct.
Look, I agree with the spread, but I still think you should still have 2 players, double digits, double goals, and add still players in around that can produce these numbers.
Absolutely.
I think there was a big thing made around the last couple of years. Oh, we're so reliant on Kane and Son. What team aren't relying on their best players? If you're a manager that walks into any team, you pick your 3 best players and you form your team around it. You're relying on your best players. So I think that's a narrative that we have to just accept that, Tottenham. Yes, you are going to be relying on your best players, because I think a lot of the thing around Harry Kane was we don't want to be we're over relying on him, this, that, and the other. Well, he's a world-class player. What team isn't? When Ronaldo was at Real Madrid, they're relying on him a lot of the times. You know what I mean? It's
I guess. Yeah, I mean, I guess the point then I would try to make, just to turn that into a positive, is that based on all of those numbers, if we had another person in there, or if we could put somebody in there that was a 20 and 20, we'd be in a far better position. Or even a couple of players that was another, 18 and 7, or 18 and 10, 18 and 10. But so I don't know. That tells me that we're not that far away, right? Just as I say, just to try and put some positive on it.
The ante's been up by Man City, have won 7 titles. I mean, when the Premier League started in 1992, it took roughly 82 goals to win the league. And then it went up to 86, right? And then you're looking at Arsenal couldn't win the league and they scored 90 goals last season. When you look at our side, where are we getting 90 goals from? This is why I've always argued. I don't care if we've got Messi on one wing and Ronaldo on the other. If we've got wingers in their teams, a good strike rate was always considered to be 1 in 4. You'd want 10 goals from your wingers medium. And from your wingers, right? 10 goals. If your central striker gets 20, that's 40. You're still looking for 50 goals. Where are we getting the goals?
The thing is, though, it's about consistency. Like, you look at a lot of them numbers and you go back and look at sort of the season and the fixtures and that. We've done it in spurts. When we've won big, and we've won by 3-4 goals, and that's where a lot of these numbers are manipulated.
Yeah.
But when you look for consistency over the course of the season, like you speak about, a good rate for a winger used to be 1 in 4. But the other 3 or 4 games, how many times would he play the killer ball for someone to square it? He used to pre-assist to the assist and stuff like that. When you look at this Tottenham team, people do it in spurts, but there's no one that's consistent over the course of the whole season. And I think that's been Tottenham's biggest problem since Ange Postecoglou's arrived. Once you sell Harry Kane, you don't go out and buy right. Son, was a massive beneficiary off the back of Harry Kane in terms of the partnership. He hasn't struck up one with anyone since. And what you're looking at now is we don't have a consistent threat every single game. It's sort of like when we win, it looks great, but then you go for large periods then where we don't. We look like we couldn't even open a chest of drawers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we're very clunky up front, no matter what blend of front three we got.
There's no fluidity to it. I find it quite boring, to be quite frank. And for me, I just think, you bring in two, you've got 2 players up there that are putting up double digits on both. I still think you add in the likes of Kulu, Madison. I think they'll even get greater numbers if you have better players for them, up front to service and stuff like that. And I think that's just always been my biggest problem, is there's no real fluidity or consistency of danger, of threat. You look at the top teams around, they always look dangerous going forward. Every time they go forward, they look like they can score. It's consistent. Whereas at Tottenham, it's like, I'm praying for that one good opportunity every single game. And I'm not being funny. It's sucking the life out of me. It really is. It's killing me.
Yeah. Then you got these guys. There's another banner after these. I mean, like Parrott, 32 goals. Bergvall, 32 appearances, 1 goal and 3 assists. Davies 18 games. Spence 18 goals, 1 goal. And what a goal that was! He scored away at Coventry in the League Cup. Because, all the stick he was taking in social media at that time. Give the kid credit, right? And the way he lifted that over the goalkeeper, that was a composed. And I've seen him like him do that. I mean, and I thought that is a composed finish. A striker would have been proud of that.
The thing is, right? Like, you can look at them and go, the goals are being spread out. But even when we had Kane and Son, Højbjerg chipped in with 5, Bentancur chipped in with 5, Dyer chipped in with goals, Sanchez chipped in with goals, Doherty was chipping in with goals, Emerson was chipping in with goals. The goals were always spread out.
Mm-hmm.
It's just Kane and Son could, double up because they were so good. What we're seeing now is the goals are still being spread out, but we're struggling because we don't have 2 players of real quality that can do it on a consistent basis.
Yeah. I think Romero got 5
enough.
last season, didn't he? 5 or 6 even. So yeah. And the last banner on these is Sarr, 38 appearances, surprising. 5 games, 2 goals. Nice goals as well.
Even the 18 by Moore is quite surprising. I didn't even think he played.
Yeah, 18 appearances. We did the European ones, didn't he? 2. I think one of them goals is wrong. 2 goals is wrong there. I've got this online, obviously. Don't have to like double or treble check the sources. He did score in the pre-season friendly away to Edinburgh. That was a nice goal as well. The way he jinked in between players and put it in the net. Yeah, I mean, I love Mikey Moore. He's going to be an absolute superstar.
Yeah.
VDV 12 games, 2 assists. Romero 4 games, 1 assist. Udogie 23, Vicara 16 games, 1 assist. Forster's made 37 appearances. So that is really that on that. Let's just go through it. Is there anything else worth talking about? We could give Dave the questions to finish with.
Yeah, well, Dave, just quickly as well. What was your thoughts on the last go? You cast your mind back to the Ipswich game and that time of the year, and you remember having any specific thoughts about the situation then?
Yeah, I just remember, I was very disappointed and angry over the course of the game that we didn't really test that goalkeeper a lot, when I was looking at Ipswich. And, I think a large part of the problem was the goalkeeper, especially in tight games. He was always erratic. He was always costing them a goal. And I think that was large parts of their problem. And it's since then, in January, they've gone out, they've addressed it, they brought in a new goalkeeper, and he's playing decent enough for them. But that was my biggest disappointment because we just didn't test him enough, in my opinion. I don't think we created enough on the day at all. And then also the lap going forward the other end, I remember him running all over Romero and Dragusin ran all over them. They couldn't contain him. He held up the ball, caused a lot of trouble, and got Ipswich up the pitch. And I think they're probably going to employ something very, very similar, to be quite frank. So for me, don't be afraid to cross the ball. I think we're guilty of always trying to score the perfect goal or try and wait for the perfect moment. That goal against Man United came from Bentancur crossing the ball, Sonny hitting a shot, Bergvall hitting a shot, and James ball falls to James Maddison, puts it away. Great reading of the game by Maddison as well, actually. But, I think we've got to take risks. You've got to ask the question. Teams against us, they ain't creating great goals. They put the ball into the box and they create havoc. It's, and for me, I think that's what you've got to do, especially against a team that's going to be set up defensively sound, bodies behind the ball. You're not going to be able to walk through them. If you are in possession, we've got to move that ball quickly. And when you get it out wide, put it in the box. Stop coming back all the time and playing this horseshoe football, because that's their game plan working. That's what they've done all week. They've set up in this shape in training, moving side to side, hoping that you can sucker the opposition into that sort of game. Because what you don't want them is getting down the sides, putting the ball in behind you and forcing you to turn, shank your clearance or stuff like that. That's what they don't want you to do. So for me, it's simple. Just go and test them. Put balls in the box, take shots, slide balls through. It's not going to be perfect, but fucking ask questions this time.
Right.
And defensively, be much better. Go and hit the lap nice and early if I'm Danso. If I'm manager, I'm saying, see that lap guy. Very good player. Could be a match winner. Could be very difficult for us today. Go and hit him nice and early, because it's an unwritten rule in football. Within the first 5 minutes, you are allowed to kick someone's head off, and you get away with it. We see it done to Tottenham players time and time again. You're allowed to assault someone. So for me, dance nice and early, 50-50 challenge, boom, straight through them, and let them know you're in for a game.
It's been a great show. I never asked you, Drew, this, and what we used to do when we have a bit of time at the end of the show, if people haven't left early or whatever.
You doing all right for time, Dave?
Yeah, and fun. So, Drew, I'm going to go through this same question each time, so don't answer the other ones, right? So, how did you become a Spurs fan, Drew?
Family, great grandfather, father, me. Didn't have a choice. No
Dave?
choice whatsoever.
Yeah, sort of same thing, lad. You know, my father, I didn't have a choice. My father's a Spurs fan. His brother's a Spurs fan. My granddad was a Spurs fan on my mother's side. So, you know, sort of just grew up in a Spurs family.
Yeah, same with me. I had the pleasure of watching a double side play and all that. With me, it was either a Spurs fan or the orphanage. So there wasn't much choice in it. You didn't have much choice. And once you sign that contract, you sign it for life, don't you? So, second question. Now, you don't have to name loads, I'm sure. Drew, name a favourite Spurs player.
It would have to be, for me, probably just one, Gareth Bale for me. That season where he was just lights out, just banging them in from 25, 30 yards every other week. And special mention, David Ginola.
Yeah.
I've got 4 and I can't differentiate.
Give us some more then, go on.
The first one's Robbie Keane, obviously the Irish connection, you know, one of great, if not Ireland's greatest ever player produced, you know, shows that a small guy, because at the time in the Premier League, it was a very big league, physical, you know, he showed that small guy can make it and can play up front. So him for obvious reasons. Luka Modric, I don't think gets enough respect at all. I think he was absolutely superb at Tottenham Hotspur. You talk about, again, a small player coming into against 6 foot plus players, you know, running rings around him, couldn't get close to him. And then obviously Harry Kane, I mean, my guy, my brethren, what a guy. Absolutely love the guy. And then lastly, David Ginola. I mean, like when I first sort of went watching Tottenham and watching Spurs games, he was the player that drew me most. He was like, he's the player I want to be in a team. I don't want to be your centre back. I don't want to be your fullback, your goalkeeper, your centre. I want to be him. I want to be the creative guy, someone that gets people off their seats. So, you know, him as well.
Oh, actually, sorry, I missed one. I have to give a suit, being as Dave got 4. I have to give a really special mention to Teddy Sheringham, because that guy made me hold my breath a few times. He touch of class, man, touch of class.
When people ask me my favourite Spurs player, I always say the double side. But when I actually nail me down, I go Glenn Hoddle, the best player England have ever produced, in my opinion. Goalkeepers, I see a bit of Bill Brown. It's got to be Pat Jennings for me. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Right, too many. I'd pick, I'd pick Dave Mackay and Danny Blanchard out that double side any day of the week. Right, so yeah, I mean, Danny was he was just a driving force in that team, really. And Mackay, like, you didn't mess with him, right? So yeah, right. Choose a particular. I know you'll have loads. A particular Spurs victory. I hope it's an Arsenal one.
Well, it comes after an Arsenal one, because for me, even though it wasn't the greatest of games, it's the FA Cup in '91, which obviously is when we took out Arsenal. We took out Arsenal in the semis with that Gascoigne banger of a free kick. But yeah, so that for me, it would be the final of the '91 FA Cup.
Yeah, for me, look, it's hard to overlook that Ajax one. I mean, that was momentous. But I'm going to go with the 2008 Carling Cup, you know, the one that I really remember us living.
Yeah.
You know, I really liked a lot of the players in around the team. And again, no one gave us a chance and we pulled it off. So for me, I think, you know, because it delivered a trophy, I'm going to pick that one.
Yeah, fair play.
Victory for me, for atmosphere and all that, got to be the 1984 UEFA Cup final at the Lane.
I was 5. So, yeah. Forgive me for not remembering, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was 19. So, like,
there you go.
Yeah, I think it was 19. I was born in 55. So, yeah, for me. Okay, then. Select a special Spurs goal, Drew.
Right. All right. Well, I got 5.
Okay.
It's going to be the Gascoigne free kick, Arsenal semi-final FA Cup '91. Is the Naeem goal?
Yes.
even though, to be honest with you, even though it's against Arsenal, I don't care. He's one of our own. There was the Gareth Bale against West Ham.
Yes, lad.
Yeah, the last minute winner one. Yeah,
the last minute winner. The Modric against Liverpool.
Yes, lad.
And
you could have picked Wanyama against Liverpool.
I could have done the Wanyama, but the last Mora goal against Ajax, just because of the emotion. So yeah,
do you know what? You picked two of my of the three I had. Yeah, Luka Modric against Liverpool was one of them, and what was the other one you said?
The Bale against West Ham.
Yeah, Bale against West Ham, and then the other one for me was Harry Kane against Arsenal. The one from the edge of the corner near there. That was an unbelievable goal. And then special mention, I don't know if anyone remembers this, Aso Okoto against Liverpool. I think it was an opening game of the season, if I remember correctly. Didn't he score an absolute rocket off the underside of the bar?
Oh, well, I'll tell you what then. Special merit, another special
merit mention. Was it,
Eric? Eric Edson, Liverpool.
Yeah. Oh, Edmund. Eric Edmund. Yes. An absolute fucking rocket. Yeah. On the Martin Yole.
And Sandro scored a banger against Man United, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, come on, because now I'm thinking of there was a couple of games in a cup match against Fulham between Robbie Keane and Dimitar Berbatov, where they paired up, and it was a game where they wore the brown and gold kit, and the pair of them just played lights out. And I think Berbatov set up Keane and Keane set up Berbatov. And they were just a couple of like real deft. I think Robbie Keane or Berbatov's was like a little outside of the foot lob over the defensive line, and Keane got on the end of it, or vice versa. But yeah, I mean, we've had so many, man. It's
Gareth Bale against Inter Milan.
Oh, Gareth Bale. Oh, taxi for Mycon. Oh,
I think he retired the whole back line.
I think one of Breeze's goals when he beat 5 or 6 men. I think it was against Newcastle. For Chivas,
Mickey Hazard, FA Cup. Mickey Hazard, FA Cup. Was a banger.
Glenn Hoddle has a wonderful goal, doesn't he? He has one of them chip goals.
And also in that time of the era, on the replay, when we played at Arsenal's ground against Wolves, when Ricky Villa hit that banger in the far corner from distance. But
yeah, I think I had that on a VHS tape of Tottenham's greatest FA Cup goal, Tottenham greatest goals.
When we was away
videos like that
away in 72 and the 2-legged final against Wolves, Chivers scored that bullet shot. It just hit the net from out of nowhere from about 20-25 yards. I'd pick that one. This is a bit of fun now. Spurs empty trophy cabinet, right? Basically, I used to put the people in. So you're allowed to pick anyone in football, really, that you really don't like. It can be a pundit as well, and you bang them in Spurs. It's a bit like Room 101 if you ever watched that, right? So and so pick someone and put them in Spurs that you don't like in football, right? A bit of fun. Can be a referee, player, manager, pundit.
So I'm just throwing them in an empty cabinet and throwing away the key.
And we throw the key away, right? So.
Sol Campbell. I'm just going to say it. Sol Campbell. I'm sick of the guy crying.
Fine, good choice.
I'm sick of him crying and moaning about the whole situation. If he can't see what he's done, he's a dumbass. For me, just end the saga and do that with him.
You're struggling, Drew. I'll go. Jason Cundy, I just think he's an utter knob.
Yeah.
I'll put Jason Cundy in, right?
Yeah.
So,
You got me thinking, man. There's so many of it. Who really winds me up?
David Dean, actually, he's another one. He was in charge when he wouldn't let us reschedule the game, for the Europa League or Europa Conference League, but he was allowing Arsenal to schedule games left, right, and centre. He's another one. Oh, and the chef for when we against West Ham all them years ago for lasagna.
Yeah,
he's another one.
Yeah. I tell you what, I'm gonna go really new school. I'm gonna go YouTube. I'm going to go Talk Sport. I'm going to say Rory Jennings. I fucking can't stand that little pillock. Anyway, big up.
You could have
Yeah.
picked Jamie O'Hara as well, someone like that.
Yeah, he's another one as well. But I mean, to be honest with you, Dave had the best one. He had a good shout with Sol Campbell. Even though, I mean, I got to love-hate that last advert because it was awful to watch. But whoever the marketing team is for that advert is fucking stroke of genius.
Do you know what, right?
I think even Spurs fans' great grandchildren are going to hate Sol Campbell.
The thing is, right, if he genuinely embraced it beforehand, I'd said, you know what, great shit housery on the advert. But the fact that he's sitting there bitching and moaning, begging for forgiveness and everything else, and then goes and makes that advert, and it's like, and you wonder why you get the hate you do. You know what I mean? So it's sort of like someone like him doesn't have the right to do it because he couldn't embrace it beforehand.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Sem coming in with the hot ones. We got Judas.
Yeah, come on.
John
Anybody
Terry,
else? Anyone in the chat? Come on. Who's going? Oh, all day. Who's going in the Spurs empty cabinet? Judas is gone. John Terry. Keown. Clive Thomas. Yeah.
Steve Nicol. Can't stand him.
Yeah.
And Craig Burley. Don't like either of them, to be honest with you. ESPN. Bad panel.
Matty Cash.
Yeah,
well, tell you what, I am actually, while we're still here, I don't know if Paul G, big up, Nita as well, big up. I starred a couple of comments earlier. Dave, what do you think about this? Has Udogie lost his place now because of the player that Spence has become? Do you think there's a possibility that just because of how good he is, Spence becomes the starting left back and Udogie has to fight for his place?
Yeah, look, I think it's natural that Udogie will have to come back and fight for his place. Look, don't get me wrong. I think, a lot of Spurs fans have been harsh on him. I think, I spoke about it earlier, right? The fact that we didn't buy another left back. We've asked him to play 2 seasons solid. We've asked him to play all this season injured. He's gone out injured again because we didn't really give him time to really come back. I think, he's going to have to naturally come back and fight for his place. But this is where we should be at Tottenham Hotspur. This is the competition we should have all over the pitch. You should have 2 players ideally fighting for every position and then a couple of youngsters fighting for other positions throughout the team. That's the squad you want to get to. Now that the emergence of Jed Spence, I don't want to hear anyone go sell Pedro Porro. No. You want to have the options. You want to be able to rest Jed Spence and bring in someone like Pedro Porro who can offer something for you going forward, or, different players for different games. Do you know what I mean? Different problems and stuff like that. Ideally, I would still look to bring in another left back and give Destiny Udogie more competition this summer. This is where we want to get to. It's good. Competition is good. Competition is what drives people on. It what brings hunger. It brings success. It drives people to be better. So I think it's something we should embrace at Tottenham. Shouldn't be making it easy for our players to just get selected.
Yeah, fantastic. That's a great answer. Adrian, you have anything to add to that?
No. It's been a brilliant show, been an excellent show, and we like to keep it
just quickly. Nita actually asked a question earlier that I started. I wanted to make sure we answered that. What does? Here we goes, Nita. Dave, who do you think are the most skillful players in our squad right now?
Let me bring the squad up.
Do you actually think we have any out-and-out ballers?
I think Jed Spence is a baller, quite frank. Okay. I think when I look at him, I think outside the boot, inside the boot, cross, shoot, hold on to the ball, take people on. I think Jed Spence is a natural sort of baller. I really like him. I think, when you look at Pedro Porro, again, I think he's a baller, but a different type of baller. For someone to be able to stroke a ball the way he does, cross a ball the way he does, shoot a ball the way he does, that's natural, So for me, again, he's a different type of baller. Apart from that,
Kulu?
Yeah, I think Kulu's a baller. I think, the tight control, being able to maneuver the ball quickly, in tight spaces, that's not easy to do that. You got to have quick feet to do that and a good brain. I think he's a baller. I think Udebur potentially, I think, is probably a baller as well. I really like what I see from him. But we don't have anywhere near enough of them.
Udebur and Tell, maybe. I think future stars potentially. Their future baller potential.
Yeah, we know Madison's quality. I think Bergvall, as they call him, he's got such good vision. He's got a long range pass on him as well, crossfield pass. He should use it more, right? And you've got to have vision to hit them balls like that. And believe it or not, Son is very skillful. He is very skillful.
Very true. Very true.
But it's
All right,
again,
and
it's
then there's
consistency.
the last one that I'd starred from earlier from Paul G, and this one I think was aimed for Dave, or when we were talking about Gray. Would Højbjerg have been worth keeping hold of to teach the likes of Gray in that sort of sixth position or at the base of that midfield?
Look, I always
Yeah.
thought Højbjerg was worth keeping hold of. I've always said, Tottenham should keep Højbjerg. I think he's a lot better player than what people give him credit for. I think there's a use for him in terms of a squad. I think he's a player that's always given it his all when he's been here, never really shirked responsibility, never really had a bust up with anybody, just, got out there, done his job, put his nuts on the line. And for me, it's sad that I think he wanted to leave because, I think we could have done with him this season, to be quite frank, in games. I think we missed that that bit of steel at times, and that's one thing that Højbjerg always gave you. So for me, again, it's hindsight, but the problem is it's always looking back. Why can't we get onto these when we've got these players? When we have them, everyone, Stella Højbjerg is fucking useless. When we have Harry Kane, cash in on him, it'll be fine. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, we're going, oh, would you have them back? And it's like, yeah, fucking course I would.
Right.
I get angry sometimes. It's like Paratici, the great one.
Yeah,
I came out, I recognize his business, I called him the Don. I got ridiculed left, right, and center for it. And now I'm hearing the same people go, well, I'll take Paratici back when his band comes back. And it's like, hang on.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was crying for Kane. I mean, I've always been selfish in my respect that even when we sold Bale and all that, get the money from it. No, I always want to see the best players at the club because I'm paying to go and watch the players play. And on the Kane situation, you could quite easily argue the fact that the money Bayern paid for Kane, we kept him for another year and lost him. We was only one win or maybe 4 points away from a Champions League spot. If we'd have kept Kane last season, we wouldn't have finished fifth. We'd have probably finished third, and we'd have got Champions League, and we'd have got that money back that he was sold for. And this was my argument at the time, but I just got pelters for it. But that's the way it goes. I mean, like, fans are entitled to their opinion, so. All opinions.
Yeah, but I just feel like at Tottenham, it's deja vu since Pochettino, where, because everything's always negative around the club, as soon as people come in, people don't give them a chance. And then we're doing a lot of revisionists, a lot of, looking back, in hindsight, should we have done this? Should we have done that? And it's like, yeah, but like people try to say we should have done this. Do you know what I mean?
Faz Redford, thanks for joining the show. You're new to us. I see you. There's a few new guys in there, which is what we want. This is why we're going out a bit later to cater more for Canadian, USA, groups of fans that follow Spurs that.
Oh, Faz is in the UK.
Yeah, are not in the same time zone as us. So this is why we have a late show on a Friday, just for you guys, right? Question from him: do you think Tell will sign for us in the summer? And do we want to? I think he will settle well into their team. To me, he looks undoubtable. He looks undoubtable talent, but it's too small a sample at the moment. I mean, he's got to kick on. I mean, they got the option. I mean, like, he's a big price. If he's a big price, you can go and get oven ready Vlahovic, go for Gyökeres or someone like that. I mean, he didn't do too well when he was at Coventry.
What do we think? So what would be a realistic GA between now and the end of the season for Tell, do you think? Is 5 and 5 asking too much, like 10 GA? Or would you expect that, given the price tag? Not enough. You think you need 15?
Do you know what it is for me? I think he's got to be absolutely exceptional or out of this world, to be quite frank. And the reason why I say that, Drew, and I know some people say that's an unrealistic expectation, which I can understand, but hear me out on it. It's going to require a large fee. You're talking 40, 50 million, right? Let's not kid ourselves. It's going to require a large fee. And look, don't get me wrong. I like what I see in terms of his hold up, his ability outside the box, drops in, takes the ball, gives it off, goes again and stuff. I like it. But in front of goal, he's still raw. He hasn't come in and lit it up in front of goals, Don't get me wrong. There's talent there. But you're adding to the problem. We've also got Werner, who couldn't hit a barn door. You've got Johnson, who has to finish off other people's moves. You've got Udebur, who's still raw. What we need is proven talent, someone that's proven, been there and done it. That's what's going to kick us on. That's what's going to drag us towards our goals at Tottenham. I think you bring in Tell. I think you're adding to the problem of what we've already got, where you've got a lot of potential, but you've got no specialists. And I think that's, for me, is a huge problem.
Nice goal he scored against Villa from Decky's cross. That was a sweet finish, actually.
Yeah, it was a good finish, but how many chances did he burn against Man United?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for me, I just think you got to go out and invest that money into and add 20, 30 million and go in and get in a player ready for the here and now. It's almost at the level where, when we were saying Larry Kane, people were coming to me and saying, Gift Orban's our savior. We're not too far off that by bringing in Tell. We've got to realize there's a difference. In order to be at a certain status in English football, in European football, you've got to have the right players in the right areas. And goal scorer, someone up front who can hit the goal regular and not only do that, but hold up the ball, play others in, put, a bit like what Harry Kane done, it requires money. And for me, go out and spend it. I think with Tell, you're only adding to the problem that we've already got across the forward line. And then all of a sudden you're going to be in a situation where you spunked out big money on all these players. They're all bang average. None of them are solution. They're all on 4 or 5 year contracts on big money at Tottenham Hotspur. You're back in the same situation you were with Dyer, Sanchez, Davies, and all these other guys. So for me, I think it's one where they have to really get a hold of it this summer and realize you need fucking quality. If a little fat Irish lad, 5 foot odd, can sit here and say it for the last 2 years and tell people where this club was going without Kane and Son, what are the people that are getting paid thousands inside the club doing? Surely there has to be some sort of recognition. We've already learned our lesson twice. We didn't replace Harry Kane the first summer adequately with any real quality, and we didn't do it again this summer. When are we going to learn our lesson?
Yeah. It's a question of doing the due diligence. We've had enough young players and we need oven-ready players now. We need experience, we need an experienced striker. With the wingers, I think we need 5. I'd say a winger, but we got so many young wingers here. We don't know, if Odegaard more will make it, but it's time with him. Odegaard, Yang Min Hook at the end of the season. Now we're looking towards the end of the season because we're looking to finish mid-table and win the Europa League. It's basically it. So if it gets that situation with half a dozen games to go, play the youngsters. Play the youngsters when there's no pressure on, I don't know,
man. I think there's still 12, 13 games to play. That's still an awful lot of points. That's still
the frustrating
I'm not trying to be ridiculous, but there's still 30 odd points on the table to play for in the league. It's not out of this.
39 points, isn't it? Left to play 13 games, 39 points.
Was it 39? Yes. I just think that there's. I just think if you go in with the mindset, we'll just try and just try and get mid-table in the league and just do everything you can in the Europa League, then I think you fall foul of the same thing that we fell foul of last year with the whole bollocks with the Arsenal and Manchester City games, where if we'd have just concentrated on us and if we'd have actually won those 2 games, we'd have been in the 3rd position and we'd have been in the Champions League. And so we just need to worry about us. And I just think there's a possibility. Going out now. I just think there's a possibility that we could push up. I've said top half finish. You could finish 8th, 7th. If you really if we play the sort of football that we know we're capable of playing, tighten up at the back, get some clean sheets. I just think there's all to play for. I just got to keep that optimism. Yeah, but I can't let the season fall flat right now.
We're not ready for the Champions League. I remember when we finished top of the group, when everyone said Real Madrid have finished top of our group and Dortmund had finished second, and we actually won the group. But you look at the team we had then.
I just think this different format, Adrian. I think this different format and not these 4 teams.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Dave?
The thing is, the squad isn't too far off from being able to compete there. It's just about sprinkling it with the right players this summer and dragging it to that level. When we first went into the Champions League, we weren't prepared, but we dragged ourselves to that level and we added to it, and that's what you got to do at the end of the day. Look, I agree. For me, I think you can't write off the season. Don't get me wrong, it's a tall ask, but go and win your next 5 games and see where it puts you.
Right.
To me, you need a striker, 2 midfielders, a left centre back and a left back. That's 5, and possibly a winger. But because we've got a cluster of wingers, but they're young coming through, we'll see if Odegaard is the answer or part of the solution. With all these games to come, won't we? But you can't tell me that we weren't trying to get a cent. Well, we got Danso in, who looks a decent buy. You can't tell me we weren't trying to get a left back in, because that was the one position we were crying out more than anything for in the summer. And they must have tried, but clubs weren't releasing, or they couldn't get someone.
They must be waiting for Donnelly to come back. Shoot him in there again, left back. Why not? We've done it once already.
Oh dear. All right, gents. Well, I think that's it's a lovely show.
It's been a great show, guys, and fantastic to get you on, Dave. We want to get you on again, obviously, and Jack. Get you on together sometime or whatever. And anyone who wants to find Dave, you can find him at the Irish Hotspur. Him and Jack there. They do brilliant, excellent content on their shows. I mean, they're a large, fast-growing group, and we hope to follow in their footsteps. Our shows, for those that don't know, go out Sundays and Tuesdays at 8 o'clock and Fridays at 10 o'clock to cater for people that are not in the Northern Hemisphere or got the UK time zones, right? If you like our content, please give the content a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. That's all we ask for supplying you the content for nothing, right? And we enjoy doing this, and we hope you enjoy listening to what we have to say. We pride ourselves at Spurs Diehards on being a mature and sensible group. We're a very neutral group, actually, out there, out of all of them. So, and it's the way we intend to continue. We will discuss every controversial topic. We won't avoid them. But, we do them in a mature and sensible manner. That's what we're about.
I don't think mature and sensible and me sitting on the same screen is, the right words, Adrian. I think that's sort of, it makes it look like, it's not mature and sensible when I'm here. But
we like firm opinions. We don't want people with splinters that sit on the fence, right? So we like firm opinions, So, yeah. So a few more comments.
I do want to say, though, quickly, if there is anybody new that's tuning in, it's your first time watching this channel tonight, please make sure you smash the subscribe button. I'm a firm believer of, helping Spurs fans out where you can. It's not easy doing this. So please make sure you give the boys the love they're owed and they're due. And I want to say a massive thank you as well to Drew for digging me out as well, helping Jack out, when I was out sick and that, covering and doing the pre-match build-ups and all that sort of stuff. So thank you very much, Drew. I really appreciate that as well, lad.
It's all good, man. Appreciate it. We could do it's the game's tomorrow, right? So we'll be doing a pre-match in the morning. So you can catch me on the Irish Hotspur in the morning. And just before we go, I don't think we did this. So Dave, what's your score prediction?
I'm gonna go 2-1 Tottenham. Uno reverse from the first game, 2-1 Tottenham.
There you go. Adrian?
That was my prediction, 2-1 Tottenham.
That was actually my prediction, 2-1 Tottenham as well. So
get 5 on it.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, 5 on it. Cheeky one. Well, I think that's is that everything, Adrian? Did you have anything else?
No, I haven't got nothing else. I mean, we don't like to carry on too long and bore people to death. As long as it's fact based and we keep going. So yeah.
We'll see you on the backside, Dave.
Once again, thanks to everyone. Thanks to all you viewers. Thanks to those of you that are bothering to watch us on playback. Thank you in the chat for all your comments and your questions. We welcome them. We want to engage with you. And I'll play you out with this, and I'll see you guys in the back room.